The email that destroyed her career was sent at 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Lily Harper's finger trembled over the send button. One click would expose a multi-million-dollar catastrophe buried in a contract no one else had bothered to read. One click would also mark her, a forgotten assistant who made $12 an hour, as the person who dared to challenge an empire. She clicked anyway. 24 hours later, she was unemployed, blacklisted, and invisible all over again. But across the city, Billionaire CEO Adrian Cole was just beginning to read the words that would change everything. Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The fluorescent lights in the Sterling and Cole Industries building hummed their familiar mechanical lullaby, a sound that most employees had learned to tune out years ago, the same way they'd learned to ignore the faint smell of burnt coffee perpetually emanating from the break room on the 14th floor, or the way the elevator on the east side always groaned ominously between the 9th and 10th floors, as if contemplating surrender. But Lily Harper noticed everything. It was both her greatest strength and her most exhausting curse. At 9:47 p.m. on that particular Tuesday in October, she sat alone at her desk on the 23rd floor, bathed in the cold glow of her computer screen, surrounded by the skeletal remains of a workday that had ended for everyone else at 5:30. Her desk was positioned in what the office layout optimistically called a collaborative space, but what was really just a corner near the supply closet where they put the people who didn't quite fit anywhere else. Lily was 26 years old, college-educated, and utterly invisible. She had mastered the art of being overlooked. It started with her physical presence. She was small, barely 5'3", with a frame so slight that she seemed to occupy less space than she actually did. Her brown hair was always pulled back in a practical ponytail. Her clothes were always neat but unremarkable, grays and navies and blacks that helped her blend into the corporate landscape like camouflage. She wore minimal makeup, walked quietly in flat shoes, and had perfected the ability to move through crowded rooms without disturbing the air around her. But it wasn't just her appearance. Lily had learned, through years of subtle rejection and casual dismissal, to make herself small in other ways, too. She spoke softly when she spoke at all. She never raised her hand in meetings. Not that she was invited to many. She ate lunch alone at her desk, headphones in, eyes down. She arrived early and left late, and in the 9 months she'd worked at Sterling and Cole, she was fairly certain that half the people on her floor didn't know her name. The ones who did know it rarely used it. "Hey you, can you make copies of this?" "Excuse me, did someone order lunch for the conference room?" "Assistant, I need these filed by end of day." Assistant, that's what she was. A temporary administrative assistant, hired through an agency, paid $12 an hour with no benefits, no security, and no future. Her contract was renewed month by month, a perpetual state of professional limbo that kept her grateful just to be employed at all. She was supposed to be grateful. That's what everyone implied. "You're lucky to be here," her supervisor, Patricia Hendricks, had told her during her first week. "Do you know how many people would kill for an opportunity at a company like this?" Lily had nodded, smiled, and filed that information away along with everything else she was supposed to remember about her place in the world. But here was the thing about Lily Harper that no one at Sterling and Cole knew, because no one had ever bothered to ask. She was brilliant. Not in the loud, obvious way that gets recognized and rewarded. Her brilliance was quiet, meticulous, hidden beneath layers of imposed invisibility. She had graduated summa cum laude with a degree in business administration and a minor in contract law. She could read a 70-page legal document and spot inconsistencies that attorneys with 20 years of experience would miss. She had a photographic memory for numbers and an almost supernatural ability to see patterns where others saw only chaos. And she was wasting it all making photocopies and ordering sandwiches. Tonight, though, something was different. The document on her screen wasn't something she was supposed to be reading. It was the Matsuda International Holdings merger contract, a deal worth $470 million, the biggest transaction Sterling and Cole had pursued in a decade. It was supposed to close in 3 days. The entire company was buzzing with anticipation. Executive bonuses were already being calculated. Champagne was already being chilled. Lily had only seen the contract because of a filing error. Earlier that evening, Patricia had dumped a stack of papers on Lily's desk with her usual brusque efficiency. "These need to be scanned and uploaded to the shared drive." Should have been done yesterday, but Cheryl was out sick. Get it done before you leave. Us, no please, no thank you. Just another task from the endless conveyor belt of tasks that defined Lily's existence. She had started scanning around 7 o'clock, after the office had emptied out. The process was mindless, mechanical. Feed the pages, press the button, watch them disappear into digital storage. She was on autopilot, her mind wandering to what she might make for dinner, whether she could afford to fix her car's check engine light this month, or if she should just keep ignoring it and hoping for the best. Then she saw it. Page 47 of the Matsuda contract. At first she thought she must be mistaken. She scanned it again, then pulled up the PDF on her computer to read it more carefully. Her heart started beating faster. There was an error. A massive, catastrophic error buried in the subsidiary rights clause. The language was dense, intentionally opaque, the kind of legal prose designed to be skimmed rather than scrutinized. But Lily didn't skim. She never skimmed. And what she saw made her blood run cold. The clause stipulated that upon merger completion, Sterling and Cole would assume all liability for Matsuda's subsidiary holdings, including any outstanding legal claims, environmental violations, or financial obligations. Standard enough. But there was a phrase, just 7 words, that changed everything, including all undisclosed liabilities discovered post-acquisition. Lily knew enough about corporate law to understand what that meant. Sterling and Cole would be liable for any problems with Matsuda's subsidiaries that hadn't been disclosed during due diligence. And according to her understanding of the previous sections, there had been no comprehensive audit of those subsidiaries. They were accepting responsibility for an unknown quantity of potential disasters. She dug deeper, cross-referencing with earlier sections of the contract. Her suspicions were confirmed. Matsuda had 17 subsidiary companies, and only 5 had been thoroughly vetted. The other 12 were essentially black boxes, and Sterling and Cole was about to inherit whatever was inside them. This wasn't just bad. This was company-destroying bad. Lily sat back in her chair, her mind racing. She looked around the empty office, suddenly feeling very alone. The smart thing to do would be to pretend she hadn't seen anything. This wasn't her job. This wasn't her responsibility. She was just supposed to scan the documents, not read them, not understand them. But she couldn't unknow what she now knew. She thought about the email address at the top of the contract. m.sullivan@sterlingcole.com. Michael Sullivan, head of legal. She could send him a note, just a polite, deferential message pointing out what she'd noticed. Let the professionals handle it. Except she had tried something like that before. 3 months ago, she had noticed an accounting discrepancy in a vendor contract. Just a small thing, an invoice that didn't match the agreed-upon terms. She had pointed it out to Patricia, thinking she was being helpful. Patricia had looked at her like she'd just suggested they burn the building down. "Your job is to file, not to think," Patricia had said, her voice sharp enough to cut. "Do you understand me?" Lily had nodded, face burning with humiliation. "I don't pay you to play detective," Patricia had continued. "I pay you to do what you're told. Can you do that, or do I need to call the agency and request someone else?" "I can do that," Lily had whispered. "Good. Then do it." The conversation had taken place in Patricia's office, but the door had been open. When Lily walked back to her desk, she could feel eyes on her. Later, in the break room, she overheard 2 of the junior analysts laughing about the assistant who thought she was a lawyer. She had learned her lesson. Keep your head down. Do your job. Stay invisible. But this was different. This wasn't a minor invoice discrepancy. This was a catastrophe waiting to happen. If this deal went through as written, Sterling and Cole could lose everything. Jobs would be lost. Lives would be upended. And all because no one had bothered to read the fine print. Lily's hands trembled as she highlighted the relevant passages and began composing an email. She addressed it to Michael Sullivan because he was the head of legal, and surely he would want to know. She kept her tone respectful, apologetic even, as if she were sorry for bothering him with her observations. "Dear Mr. Sullivan, I apologize for reaching out so late in the evening. While processing documents related to the Matsuda International Holdings merger, I noticed some language in Section 14, subsection C that may warrant additional review." She went on to explain what she'd found, carefully and precisely, with references to specific page numbers and clause language. She proofread it 3 times, trying to sound helpful rather than presumptuous, knowledgeable rather than arrogant. Then she added one more recipient to the email, a Cole at Sterling Cole, come Adrian Cole. The CEO, the founder, the man whose name was literally on the building. She had never met him. She'd seen him exactly twice, once during an all-company meeting where he'd been a distant figure on a stage, and once in the lobby when he'd walked past her without seeing her at all. In her mind, he was more myth than man, a figure who operated in a stratosphere so far above her own that they might as well exist in different dimensions. But this was important enough that he should know. Didn't he deserve to know that his company was about to make a catastrophic mistake? Lily's cursor hovered over the send button. Everything in her screamed to stop, to delete the email, to pretend she'd never seen anything, to protect herself. But there was another voice too, quieter but more insistent. The voice that had gotten her through college on scholarships and student loans. The voice that had kept her studying contract law late into the night, even though she was just an assistant. The voice that believed, despite all evidence to the contrary, that doing the right thing mattered. At 9:47 p.m., Lily Harper clicked send. Then she sat in the silence of the empty office, staring at the screen, wondering if she had just saved the company or destroyed herself. Probably both, she thought. Yet, 23 floors above Lily's desk, in an office that cost more to furnish than most people earned in a year, Adrian Cole was also still working. At 52, Adrian had the kind of success story that business magazines loved to profile. Orphaned at 17, he'd worked his way through college, built his first company from nothing, sold it for millions, and used that capital to create Sterling and Cole Industries, a corporate consulting and investment firm that now managed billions in assets and employed over 3,000 people across 4 countries. He was disciplined, focused, and absolutely committed to excellence. He worked 16-hour days, kept a rigorous schedule, and never allowed personal feelings to interfere with business decisions. His office reflected his personality: clean lines, minimalist design, everything in its place, no clutter, no chaos, complete control. Except for one thing. On his desk, amid the perfectly aligned files and the triple monitor setup, there was a photograph in a silver frame. A little girl with dark curls and a gap-toothed smile, holding a stuffed elephant. His daughter, Emma. She was 9 years old now, though this photo was from 3 years ago. He saw her every other weekend when his custody arrangement allowed. He sent child support payments that were generous to the point of excess. He had set up a trust fund that would ensure she never wanted for anything, but he didn't really know her. That was the price of building an empire, he told himself. Sacrifice, focus, priorities. His ex-wife, Rachel, had understood that, right up until she didn't. The divorce had been civil, efficient, handled by excellent attorneys. They'd agreed that Emma would be better off with primary custody going to Rachel, whose life was stable and present in a way Adrian's could never be. He told himself it was the right decision, the logical decision. He told himself a lot of things. Tonight, Adrian was reviewing the final projections for the Matsuda deal. Everything looked perfect. The numbers aligned beautifully. The synergies were obvious. The board was ecstatic. This deal would position Sterling and Cole as a major player in the Asian market and cement Adrian's legacy as one of the great builders of his generation. He should have been celebrating. Instead, he felt a vague unease he couldn't quite name. It wasn't about the deal itself. The due diligence had been thorough. Michael Sullivan's legal team had spent months vetting every aspect of the merger. The contract had been reviewed by some of the best attorneys in the country. Everything was buttoned up tight, so why couldn't he shake this feeling? Adrian's phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Emma wants to know if you can make it to her recital next Saturday. I know it's your weekend, but if work interferes again, please just tell me now so I can prepare her. He winced. He'd missed the last 2 weekend visits because of emergency meetings. Emma had been understanding on the phone, too understanding for a 9-year-old, in a way that made Adrian's chest ache. It's okay, Daddy, she'd said in that small voice. I know you're busy saving the world. He wasn't saving the world. He was building a company. But somehow, he'd let his daughter believe that the two things were equivalent. Adrian typed back, I'll be there, promise. Then he returned to the Matsuda projections, pushing away the guilt that had become as familiar as his morning coffee. His computer chimed with an incoming email. He glanced at the preview, something from legal about the Matsuda contract. He almost ignored it. Sullivan's team sent him copies of everything, and he'd already reviewed the relevant materials. But something made him open it. The sender wasn't Michael Sullivan. It was someone named Lily Harper. He didn't recognize the name. He started reading. His expression, which had been neutral, shifted to focused attention, then concern, then something harder. By the time he finished, Adrian Cole, a man who prided himself on never losing his composure, was dialing Michael Sullivan's personal cell phone, his jaw tight with barely controlled anger. Sullivan answered on the third ring, his voice muzzy with sleep. "Adrian, it's almost 10 o'clock. Tell me about Section 14, Subsection C of the Matsuda contract," Adrian said, his voice dangerously calm. There was a pause. "What about it?" "The subsidiary liability clause. Tell me exactly what we're assuming when this deal closes." Another pause, longer this time. "We're assuming standard liabilities for disclosed holdings. It's boilerplate language." "Read it again," Adrian interrupted. "Read it word for word and tell me if that's really what it says." He could hear rustling on the other end, Sullivan pulling up the contract on his laptop, probably cursing the late-night disturbance. Then silence. Long, terrible silence. "Oh my God," Sullivan finally whispered. "Yeah," Adrian said flatly. "How did we miss this?" We had 3 attorneys review this contract. Apparently we needed 4. Or maybe just one person who actually read the damn thing." Adrian's voice was cold. "How bad is it?" "Give me until morning. I need to dig into Matsuda's subsidiary disclosures, see what we're actually looking at. You have until 6 a.m. I want a full risk assessment on my desk. And Michael? Find out who Lily Harper is and why she's apparently the only person in this entire company who knows how to read a contract." Adrian hung up without waiting for a response. He sat in his office, the city lights glittering through the floor-to-ceiling windows, and felt something he hadn't experienced in years. He'd been wrong. Not about a minor detail or a judgment call, but fundamentally, catastrophically wrong. He'd been about to steer his company into disaster, and he'd been saved by someone whose name he didn't even recognize. Someone small enough, invisible enough, unimportant enough to have fallen completely beneath his notice. The irony wasn't lost on him. Adrian pulled up the company directory and searched for Lily Harper. Her profile appeared, a tiny thumbnail photo of a young woman with a hesitant smile, listing her as temporary administrative assistant level 1. Temporary. Not even a real employee. He had built this company on the principle that excellence rises to the top. That talent reveals itself. That the best people naturally find their way to positions where they can make a difference. But here was someone exceptional, someone who had just saved them from a multi-million-dollar catastrophe. And she was making copies and ordering lunch. Something about that struck him as not just wrong, but obscene. Adrian looked at the photograph of Emma on his desk. He thought about all the times he'd told her that hard work and intelligence matter, that doing the right thing is its own reward, that the world recognizes and values people who contribute. He'd been lying to her. The world didn't work that way at all. But maybe he could make his corner of it work a little differently. Lily didn't sleep that night. She lay in her tiny studio apartment, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment she'd sent that email over and over in her mind. Had she been too forward, too presumptuous? Had she made a mistake in her analysis? What if she was wrong? No, she wasn't wrong. She'd checked and double-checked. The clause was there, clear as day once you knew to look for it. But being right didn't protect you from the consequences of being noticed. At 6:30 a.m., she dragged herself out of bed, showered, and dressed in her usual unremarkable clothes. She made coffee that tasted like regret and tried to eat toast that sat in her stomach like concrete. Her phone buzzed with an email notification. Her heart dropped. It was from Patricia Hendricks. Subject line, "See me immediately upon arrival." Lily felt sick. She took the bus to work. Her car was still making that concerning noise, and she couldn't afford to fix it this week, and arrived at the office at 8:15 earlier than usual. The building felt different in the morning light, or maybe she just felt different walking into it. Patricia's office was on the 24th floor, one level above where Lily normally worked. She'd only been up here a handful of times, usually to deliver documents or pick up assignments. The carpet was nicer here. The lighting was better. Even the air smelled more expensive. Patricia's assistant, an actual permanent employee with benefits and a real desk, barely glanced at Lily. "She's expecting you. Go in." Lily knocked softly on the door. "Come in," Patricia's voice called out, clipped and impatient. Lily entered to find Patricia seated behind her desk, her face set in an expression of profound displeasure. She was a woman in her mid-50s, perfectly coiffed, impeccably dressed, with the kind of confidence that came from 20 years of climbing corporate ladders and pushing other people off them. "Sit down," Patricia said, not looking up from her computer. Lily sat, her hands folded in her lap, trying to make herself as small as possible. Patricia finally looked at her, and Lily saw something in her eyes that made her stomach drop even further. Fury, barely contained. "I got an interesting call this morning," Patricia began, her voice dangerously soft. "From Michael Sullivan, in legal. Apparently you sent him an email last night about the Matsuda contract." Yes, I found something that seemed concerning." "You found something," Patricia repeated, her tone making the words sound absurd. "You, a temporary administrative assistant, found something that an entire legal team somehow missed." "I didn't mean to suggest." "And not only did you email legal," Patricia continued, speaking over her, "but you also copied Adrian Cole directly, the CEO of this company. You went over my head, over legal's head, straight to the top. Do you have any idea how that makes this department look?" Lily's throat felt tight. "I just thought, you're not paid to think." Patricia's voice rose sharply, loud enough that Lily flinched. "You're paid to do exactly what you're told and nothing more. Do you understand that?" "Yes, but there is no but." Patricia stood up now, leaning forward with her hands on the desk. "You made this department look incompetent. You made me look like I can't control my own staff. You embarrassed everyone involved with this deal by implying that we're all too stupid to do our jobs properly. That wasn't my intention. I don't care about your intentions. I care about the chain of command, which you violated. I care about professional boundaries, which you crossed. And I care about team players, which you clearly are not." Lily felt tears pricking at her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "The clause was wrong. The language could have cost the company millions. That is not your concern." Patricia's face was flushed now. "Your concern is filing, scanning, answering phones, the administrative tasks that you were hired to perform. Not playing lawyer, not going rogue, not causing chaos." "I was trying to help." "You weren't trying to help. You were trying to make yourself look important, to get noticed, to leap over all the people who have actually earned their positions here through years of hard work and loyalty." Patricia's voice dripped with contempt. "You're exactly the kind of employee we don't need. Someone who doesn't understand her place. Someone who creates problems instead of solving them." Lily's hands were shaking now. "So what happens now?" Patricia's smile was cold. "Your contract with Sterling and Cole is terminated, effective immediately. You can collect your things and leave. HR will process your final payment." The words hit Lily like a physical blow. "You're firing me?" "Your contract is being terminated," Patricia corrected. "There's a difference. You're a temp. You have no rights here, no recourse. You serve at will, and your services are no longer required." "Because I tried to prevent a disaster?" "Because you don't know your place," Patricia snapped. "Because you're a disruption. Because I can't trust you to stay in your lane. Pick whatever reason you like. The result is the same. You're done here." Lily stood up, her legs unsteady. "Has anyone actually reviewed the clause I found? Has anyone checked if I was right?" Patricia's expression flickered, just for a moment, with something that might have been uncertainty. But then it hardened again. "That's none of your concern anymore. Security will escort you out." "I don't need an escort," Lily said quietly. "I know the way." She turned and walked out of the office, her vision blurring with tears she was determined not to shed until she was alone. The walk back to her desk felt infinite. People were starting to arrive for the day, filling the office with the usual morning sounds, conversations about weekend plans, laughter, the hiss of the coffee machine. Lily moved through it all like a ghost. At her desk, she found a small cardboard box waiting for her, standard protocol for terminations. Someone must have brought it up while she was in Patricia's office. She began packing. There wasn't much. A coffee mug her best friend from college had given her. A small, succulent plant she'd bought to brighten up her space. A framed photograph of her parents, both gone now. taken at her college graduation, a drawer full of pens and sticky notes that belonged to the company. That was it. 9 months reduced to a box that barely filled. She was aware of people watching her, conversations dropping to whispers. News traveled fast in an office environment. The temp was being let go. The girl who'd overstepped, the one who didn't know her place. Cheryl, one of the other assistants, approached hesitantly. "Lily? Are you okay? What happened?" Lily managed a smile that felt like it might crack her face. "I'm fine, just time to move on." "But I thought you were doing such good work." "It's fine," Lily repeated more firmly. "Really?" She finished packing, took one last look around the space where she'd spent so many hours, and picked up her box. The elevator ride down was silent. In the lobby, she paused at the security desk to return her temporary badge. The guard Jerry, who had always been kind to her, looked confused. "Already leaving for the day, Ms. Harper?" "Leaving for good, actually," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "Oh." His face fell. "I'm sorry to hear that. You were always so polite." Such a small thing, being polite to the security guard, and yet it seemed to be the only thing anyone would remember about her time here. Outside, the October air was crisp and bright. People rushed past on the sidewalk, busy with their own lives and concerns, and Lily stood there holding her box of belongings, unemployed, effectively blacklisted from ever working in this industry again, in this city. She had done the right thing. She had saved the company from a catastrophic mistake, and this was her reward. Lily walked to the bus stop, sat down on the bench, and finally let herself cry. Adrian Cole's morning began at 5:45 a.m. with Michael Sullivan's risk assessment report. It was worse than they'd thought. Matsuda's 12 undisclosed subsidiaries included 3 companies with active environmental litigation, 2 with labor disputes in countries where labor laws were essentially unenforceable, and 1 that appeared to be little more than a shell corporation for tax avoidance purposes. If Sterling and Cole absorbed those liabilities as the contract was currently written, they would be looking at legal exposure in excess of $200 million. And that was a conservative estimate. The deal that was supposed to be Adrian's crowning achievement would have destroyed everything he'd built. And it had been stopped by a temporary assistant making $12 an hour. Adrian called an emergency meeting of his senior leadership team for 7 a.m. By the time they assembled in the conference room, looking variously confused, concerned, or resentful at the early summons, Adrian's mood had moved from anger to something colder and more dangerous. "We're pausing the Matsuda deal," he announced without preamble. The reaction was immediate. Protests erupted from around the table. The CFO, the head of M&A, the board liaison, all of them speaking over each other, demanding explanations. Adrian raised his hand, and silence fell. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but no one missed the steel underneath. "Last night, I received an email that pointed out a catastrophic flaw in the contract, a flaw that would have exposed this company to hundreds of millions in undisclosed liabilities. This flaw was confirmed by legal at 6 a.m. this morning. We are, as of now, renegotiating the terms or walking away entirely." "Who sent the email?" the CFO asked. "That's not the question you should be asking," Adrian said sharply. "The question you should be asking is how this flaw got through multiple rounds of review by people who are supposed to be experts. The question you should be asking is what else we're missing because we're too arrogant to double-check our work." He let that hang in the air for a moment. "But since you asked, it was flagged by someone named Lily Harper, an administrative assistant, temporary, who apparently reads contracts more carefully than our entire legal department." Michael Sullivan, to his credit, didn't make excuses. "It's on me, Adrian. I should have caught it." "Yes, you should have," Adrian agreed. "But you didn't. So now we fix it. Michael, I want a complete re-review of every single page of that contract. Use outside counsel if you need to. I want to know every risk we're taking, disclosed or otherwise, and I want it done right this time." He turned to the others. "As for the rest of you, this is what happens when we get complacent. When we assume that because we're good, we're infallible. We're not. This company survives because we're willing to be ruthless about excellence. That means checking our work. That means listening when someone points out a problem, regardless of where that someone sits in the hierarchy." Patricia Hendricks, who had been summoned to the meeting because of her department's connection to the contract processing, spoke up. Adrian, if I could clarify, Ms. Harper's email was well-intentioned, but she violated chain of command and created significant disruption. She saved this company, Adrian interrupted, his voice hard. What did you do? Patricia's face flushed. I manage a department that handles hundreds of documents, and one of those documents almost destroyed us. Where is Ms. Harper now? There was a beat of silence. I terminated her contract this morning, Patricia said, lifting her chin defensively. She went over my head, violated protocol, and showed a fundamental misunderstanding of professional boundaries. I couldn't have that kind of behavior in my department. Adrian felt something snap inside him. Get out, he said quietly. Excuse me? Get out of this meeting, now. Patricia stood, her face pale. Adrian, I was following company policy. You were protecting your ego at the expense of this company's survival, Adrian said, his voice colder than she'd ever heard it. You fired the one person who actually did her job correctly. So get out of this room, and while you're gone, think very carefully about whether you want to still work here. Patricia left, the door clicking shut behind her with a sound like a verdict. Adrian looked around the table at the shocked faces of his senior team. Does anyone else need clarification on what I expect from this company? No one spoke. Good. Then let's get to work. And someone find out where Lily Harper lives. I need to speak with her. By noon, Adrian had Lily's address. By 1 p.m., he was standing outside a modest apartment building in a neighborhood that was politely described as transitional and more accurately described as struggling. He hadn't told anyone he was coming here, hadn't sent his assistant to arrange a meeting, hadn't done any of the things that normally insulated him from direct human contact. This felt too important to delegate. Adrian found apartment 3B and knocked. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then he heard movement inside, and the door opened to reveal a young woman in worn pajamas, her eyes red-rimmed and exhausted. She looked at him, and her expression cycled through confusion, recognition, and something that might have been fear. Mr. Cole? Her voice was hoarse. May I come in? Adrian asked gently. Lily stepped back wordlessly, and Adrian entered a studio apartment that could have fit inside his office bathroom. It was clean but sparse, the kind of space that spoke of someone living paycheck to paycheck, where every purchase was carefully considered and luxuries didn't exist. He saw her box of belongings from the office sitting on a small table, the mug, the plant, the photograph. This is what they'd reduced her to. I'm not here to blame you, Adrian said before she could speak. I'm here to thank you, and to apologize. Lily blinked at him, clearly not comprehending. The clause you found, Adrian continued, would have destroyed this company. You saved us from a disaster that we were too arrogant and careless to see coming. And instead of being rewarded for that, you were fired. Terminated, Lily corrected automatically, then seemed to catch herself. Sorry, Patricia was very clear about the distinction. There is no distinction, Adrian said firmly. They threw you away because you threatened their pride. That's on me. That's on the culture I allowed to develop. Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she said very softly, I just wanted someone to check. I thought maybe I was wrong, and someone would look at it and explain why I was wrong, and everything would be fine. I didn't mean to cause problems. You didn't cause problems, you identified them. There's a difference. Adrian reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. This is an offer of employment, he said, not as a temporary assistant, as a contract analyst in our legal department. Full benefits, competitive salary, and direct reporting to Michael Sullivan, who, by the way, specifically requested that I hire you after seeing your work. Lily took the envelope with trembling hands but didn't open it. I don't understand, she whispered. What don't you understand? Why you would want me? I'm the person who made everyone look bad, who didn't know her place, who... Her voice cracked. Who got fired on her first try to help. Adrian felt something tighten in his chest. This brilliant young woman who had saved his company genuinely believed she was the problem. Can I tell you something? He asked. She nodded. I have a daughter, Emma. She's 9, and I barely know her because I've spent her entire life building this company. I've missed birthdays and recitals and parent-teacher conferences because I always had something more important to do. And you know what I tell her when I bother to call? Lily shook her head. I tell her that hard work matters, that doing the right thing matters, that if she's smart and brave and honest, the world will recognize her value. Adrian's voice was rough. I've been lying to her. The world doesn't work that way. My company doesn't work that way, because if it did, you would have been celebrated yesterday, not fired. He gestured to the envelope still in her hands. I can't fix the whole world, but I can fix my corner of it. Starting with this. You were scared to speak up, and you did it anyway. That's not weakness, Ms. Harper. That's courage. And this company needs more of that, not less. Lily opened the envelope with shaking hands. Adrian watched her eyes scan the offer letter, saw them widen when she reached the salary figure, more than 3 times what she'd been making. I was scared the whole time, she admitted, her voice barely audible. That's what made it courage, Adrian said softly. They stood in that small apartment, the afternoon light slanting through thin curtains, and something shifted. Not just for Lily, but for Adrian too. Because he realized that this wasn't just about correcting an injustice. It was about remembering what he'd built this company for in the first place. Not just profit, not just success, but excellence. Real excellence. The kind that recognized merit wherever it appeared, even in a quiet girl that everyone else had overlooked. Think about it, Adrian said, heading toward the door. Take whatever time you need, but I hope you'll say yes. We need you. He left her standing there, holding the offer letter, tears streaming down her face. As Adrian rode the elevator down, he pulled out his phone and texted Rachel. I'll be at the recital on Saturday. Would it be okay if I came to dinner after? I want to spend some real time with Emma. I've been missing too much. The response came quickly. She would love that. Adrian looked at the photograph on his phone's lock screen. Emma, smiling, happy, growing up too fast. Maybe it wasn't too late. For any of it. Lily sat on her worn couch for 3 hours after Adrian Cole left, the offer letter resting in her lap like something that might evaporate if she touched it too many times. The apartment was quiet, except for the familiar sounds of her building. Mrs. Chen upstairs shuffling around in her slippers, the couple next door arguing in muffled Spanish, the ancient radiator clanking as it fought against the October chill. She read the letter again and again. Each time, the numbers stayed the same. The title stayed the same. Contract analyst, legal department. $58,000 annually, plus benefits, plus a signing bonus that was more money than she currently had in her savings account. It felt like a dream, the kind she'd trained herself not to have anymore. Her phone buzzed, a text from her best friend Maya, who worked as a nurse across town. How'd it go? Did they at least give you severance? Lily stared at the message, her thumbs hovering over the keyboard. How did you explain that you'd been fired and offered your dream job in the same day? That the CEO of the company had come to your apartment and thanked you? That everything had turned upside down so fast you couldn't tell which way was up anymore? She typed back, call you tonight. It's complicated. Uh-oh, wine complicated or ice cream complicated? Despite everything, Lily smiled. Maybe champagne complicated? What? Calling you in 5 minutes. Lily set the phone down and looked around her apartment with new eyes. If she took this job, when she took this job, because of course she was going to take it, she could afford a better place. Maybe one with a real bedroom instead of a Murphy bed. Maybe one where the hot water lasted longer than 6 minutes. Maybe one in a building where she didn't have to check the stairs for needles before walking up. But the thought of leaving here brought an unexpected pang. This tiny studio had been her haven for 2 years, the first place that had been truly hers after her parents died. Her mother's favorite blanket was draped over the back of the couch. Her father's old bookshelf held her collection of contract law textbooks. Every scratch on the secondhand furniture told a story of survival. She'd been invisible here, yes. Struggling, yes, but also safe in her smallness. This offer would change everything. The question was whether she was brave enough to let it. 3 days later, Lily Harper walked back into Sterling and Cole Industries wearing a new blazer she'd found on sale and carrying a leather portfolio that Maya had insisted on buying her as a congratulations gift. Her hands were sweating, her heart was racing, and every step toward the elevator felt like walking toward the edge of a cliff. The security guard, Jerry, did a double-take when he saw her. "Miss Harper, I thought you—" He stopped himself, confusion crossing his face. "I'm back," Lily said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Different department this time." His face broke into a genuine smile. "Well, that's wonderful. Welcome back." Such a small interaction, but it steadied her. She rode the elevator up, watching the floor numbers climb past 23, her old floor, and continue to 27, where legal was housed. The doors opened onto a completely different world from the one she'd left. Where the administrative floor had been beige and utilitarian, legal was all dark wood and glass, exuding the kind of quiet power that came with seven-figure salaries and partnerships. A woman in her early 40s was waiting by the elevator, perfectly put together in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Lily's entire wardrobe. She extended her hand with a warm smile. "Lily Harper, I'm Jennifer Chen, Senior Contract Analyst. Michael asked me to get you settled in. Welcome to the team." Lily shook her hand, trying not to think about how Jennifer's grip was confident in a way hers had never been. "Thank you. I'm excited to be here." "We're excited to have you. What you caught on the Matsuda deal?" Jennifer shook her head appreciatively. "That was impressive work. Michael's been singing your praises all week." They walked through an open floor plan where attorneys and analysts worked in glass-walled offices and modern cubicles. People glanced up as they passed, and Lily felt their eyes on her. Everyone knew who she was, the temp who'd caught the million-dollar mistake, the girl who'd been fired and rehired by the CEO himself. She was visible now, whether she wanted to be or not. Jennifer led her to a cubicle near the windows, actual windows, with actual natural light. "This is you. Computer's all set up with your credentials. We have a team meeting at 10 to go over active contracts, and Michael wants to meet with you at 2. Until then, I figured I'd give you the orientation tour, introduce you around, bore you with all the compliance policies you'll need to know." "That sounds perfect," Lily said, setting down her portfolio. "Oh, and fair warning, people are going to be curious about you. The Matsuda thing made waves. Just be yourself. You earned your place here." Lily nodded, though she wasn't entirely sure she believed that yet. The morning passed in a blur of names and faces and information. Jennifer introduced her to the rest of the contract analysis team. 6 other people ranging from recent law school graduates to veterans with 20 years of experience. They were polite, professional, and clearly sizing her up. Lily couldn't tell if they resented her sudden appearance or respected it, and she was too overwhelmed to figure it out. At the team meeting, she sat quietly and took notes while they discussed ongoing contracts, risk assessments, and upcoming deals. The language was dense and technical, exactly the kind of thing that would have made most people's eyes glaze over. But Lily felt something unfamiliar stirring in her chest as she listened. She belonged here, not because Adrian Cole had given her a job, but because this was what she was good at. This was where her brain worked the way it was supposed to work. For the first time in years, she wasn't pretending to be smaller than she was. She was being asked to be exactly as sharp and thorough and detail-oriented as she naturally was. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. At 2 o'clock, Jennifer walked her to Michael Sullivan's office. He was in his late 50s, with silver hair and reading glasses perched on his nose, reviewing a document with the kind of focus that suggested he could block out a bomb going off if he was concentrating hard enough. "Michael, Lily's here," Jennifer said, knocking on the open door. He looked up, and his serious expression softened into something warmer. "Ms. Harper, come in, please." "Jennifer, close the door on your way out." Lily sat in the chair across from his desk, acutely aware that this was the man whose department she'd inadvertently embarrassed with her email. "I owe you an apology," Michael said, jumping straight to the point. "That contract should never have left this department with that clause intact. We failed. You succeeded. And instead of being thanked for it, you were punished. That's unacceptable." "I didn't mean to." "I know you didn't. But you did anyway, and that took guts." He leaned back in his chair, studying her. "Adrian told me about your background. Business administration, contract law minor, top of your class. What were you doing working as a temp?" Lily hesitated, then decided honesty was the only option. "Student loans. My parents died in a car accident during my junior year of college. I had to work full-time to pay for my last 2 years, which meant my grades slipped just enough that I didn't get into law school. And without a law degree, nobody wanted to hire me for anything except administrative work. The temp agency was the only place that called back." Michael's expression shifted to something that looked like anger, though not at her. "The system failed you." "The system works fine for people who fit the right profile," Lily said quietly. "I just wasn't one of them." "Well, you are now." Michael pulled out a thick folder. "This is the Morrison Industries contract. Mid-sized merger. Nothing as dramatic as Matsuda, but still significant. I want you to review it. Every page, every clause, every piece of fine print. Look for anything that doesn't sit right. Take your time. Be thorough. And when you're done, I want a written assessment on my desk. He slid the folder across to her. This is your test? Lily asked. This is your job, Michael corrected. The test was the Matsuda contract. You already passed. Lily took the folder, feeling its weight. What if I find something? Then you tell me, immediately. And this time, nobody gets fired for doing their job correctly. That's a promise. She nodded, clutching the folder like a lifeline. One more thing, Michael said as she stood to leave. You're going to face resistance here. Some people will think you got this job because of Adrian's guilt, not because of your merit. Some will resent that you made them look bad. Some will test you, waiting for you to fail. Don't let them rattle you. How do I handle it? Lily asked. By being better than they expect, by doing work so good they can't dismiss it, and by remembering that you earned this. His voice softened. I've been practicing law for 32 years, Ms. Harper. I've seen thousands of contracts, and I missed something that you caught in one evening. That wasn't luck. That was skill. Don't forget that. Lily left his office with the Morrison folder and something else she hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. By the end of her first week, Lily had found 3 issues in the Morrison contract. None as catastrophic as the Matsuda clause, but all significant enough to warrant renegotiation. Michael had praised her work publicly in the team meeting, and she'd seen the shift in how people looked at her. Less skepticism, more respect. But not everyone was convinced. On Friday afternoon, she was in the break room making coffee when 2 associates from another department walked in, deep in conversation. They didn't notice her standing by the counter, or maybe they did and didn't care. I'm just saying it sets a bad precedent, one of them said, a man in his 30s with the kind of confidence that came from never having to prove himself. You can't just skip the hierarchy like that and get rewarded for it. Adrian clearly disagrees, the other one replied, a woman with sharp features and sharper tone. Though I have to wonder how long this little experiment will last. She got lucky once. That doesn't make her qualified. Exactly. And now Sullivan's treating her like some kind of prodigy, giving her contract reviews that should go to people with actual experience. Lily's hand tightened on her coffee mug. Well, maybe if people with actual experience had done their jobs, Adrian wouldn't have needed to rescue the company with a temp, the woman said dryly. The man snorted. You think this is about merit? This is about optics, Adrian making a statement. Give it a few months. She'll either wash out or realize she's in over her head. They left, still talking, and Lily stood there in the empty break room, her coffee forgotten. She'd known this would happen. Michael had warned her. But knowing something intellectually and experiencing it emotionally were 2 different things. These people, with their law degrees and their expensive suits and their years of experience, saw her as an interloper, a charity case, a mistake waiting to happen. Maybe they were right. Lily took her coffee back to her desk, sat down, and opened the next contract Michael had assigned her. Her eyes scanned the pages, but her mind kept replaying what she'd overheard. Lucky. Unqualified. In over her head. Then she saw it. Buried in Section 22. A non-compete clause that was worded so broadly it would effectively prevent the acquired company from operating in any market segment for 5 years post-merger. It was either a massive oversight or a deliberate trap, and either way, it was her job to catch it. Lily highlighted the clause, cross-referenced it with industry standards, pulled up case law in similar language, and built a comprehensive analysis of why this wording was problematic and how it should be revised. It took her 3 hours. When she was done, she had a 6-page memo that was clearer and more thorough than anything she'd written in college. She proofread it twice, then walked it to Michael's office. He read it while she waited, his expression neutral. When he finished, he looked up at her with something that might have been surprise. "This is excellent work," he said simply. "Thank you." "How long did this take you?" "About 3 hours. Should I have been faster?" "No," Michael said, a slight smile playing at his lips. "I'm just impressed by the depth. Most analysts would have flagged the clause and moved on. You built a full legal argument for why it's problematic. This is associate-level work." Lily felt something warm bloom in her chest. I wanted to be thorough. Well, you succeeded. He set the memo aside. So I'm forwarding this to the negotiation team. Good catch. As Lily walked back to her desk, she passed the break room where she'd overheard the conversation earlier. She thought about those two associates, so certain she didn't belong. Let them think what they wanted. She'd let her work speak for itself. 3 weeks into her new role, Lily received an unexpected email. The sender was someone named Patricia Hendricks, and the subject line read, "Can we talk?" Lily stared at it for a long moment before opening it. The message was brief. "I'd like to speak with you in person if you're willing. I owe you a conversation. My office today at 4 p.m. if that works for you. If not, I understand." Lily's first instinct was to delete it. Patricia had fired her, humiliated her, made her feel like she was worthless. Why would she want to talk to her now? But curiosity, and maybe something else, something that felt like the possibility of closure, made her type back. "I'll be there." At 4 o'clock, Lily rode the elevator to the 24th floor, her stomach tight with anxiety. She hadn't been back to this floor since the day she'd packed up her things. It looked exactly the same, but she felt completely different walking through it. Patricia's assistant waved her through without comment, and Lily knocked on the familiar door. "Come in," Patricia called. Lily entered to find Patricia standing by the window rather than sitting at her desk. She looked older somehow, or maybe just tired. When she turned to face Lily, her expression was complicated, part regret, part defensiveness, part something Lily couldn't quite identify. "Thank you for coming," Patricia said. "Please, sit." Lily sat, but she didn't relax. Patricia took the chair next to her rather than behind her desk. A deliberate choice, Lily noted. "I'm not going to waste your time with small talk. I owe you an apology. What I did, firing you for bringing up a legitimate concern, was wrong. It was unprofessional, it was petty, and it was the kind of management failure that I've spent my entire career claiming to be above." Lily hadn't expected this. "Okay." "I told myself I was protecting the chain of command," Patricia continued, "that you'd violated protocol and needed to learn your place, but the truth is simpler and uglier than that. You made me look bad. You found something I should have caught, and instead of being grateful, I was threatened." "You were my supervisor," Lily said quietly. "You had the power to fire me. I was a temp making minimum wage. Of course you felt threatened." Patricia flinched. It's true though, isn't it?" Lily's voice was calm but firm. "I wasn't a threat to your job or your reputation. Not really. But I reminded you that competence doesn't always follow hierarchy, that the people you dismiss might see things you miss, and that was unbearable." Patricia was silent for a long moment. "You're right, and I'm sorry. Are you sorry you fired me, or sorry that Adrian Cole made it a problem for you?" The question hung between them, sharp and unavoidable. Patricia's jaw tightened. "Both, if I'm honest. I made a decision based on ego, and it blew up in my face. Adrian was very clear about his disappointment in my leadership. I've been on thin ice ever since." "Is that why you wanted to talk to me? To fix things with Adrian?" "No." Patricia met her eyes. "I wanted to talk to you because I've been thinking about what I said to you in this office. Your job is to file, not to think. I've said variations of that to a lot of people over the years. I thought I was maintaining standards. But what I was really doing was crushing initiative, punishing people for being better than I expected them to be." Lily didn't know what to say to that. "I saw you in the cafeteria last week," Patricia continued, "sitting with Jennifer Chen and some of the other analysts, laughing about something. You looked confident, happy, like you belonged there. And I realized that's what I took from you before, the chance to be where you belonged. I can't undo that, but I can acknowledge it was wrong." "Why tell me this now?" Lily asked. "Because you deserve to hear it, and because I need to hear myself say it." Patricia's smile was sad. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just trying to be better than I was." Lily stood, and Patricia did too. They faced each other across 3 feet of office carpet and a chasm of power differential that had narrowed but not disappeared. "I appreciate the apology," Lily said carefully. "I do. But I can't tell you it's okay because it wasn't. What you did hurt me. It made me question whether I was crazy for thinking I had something to contribute, and I carried that with me even after I got the new job." "I know," Patricia said quietly, "but I'm choosing to move forward anyway. Not because I forgive you exactly, but because holding on to anger takes energy I'd rather spend on my work. So, thank you for apologizing. It matters more than you probably realize. Lily turned to leave, then paused at the door. One more thing. If you really want to be better, start paying attention to the people everyone else overlooks. The assistants, the temps, the quiet ones. You never know what you might find. She left Patricia standing there and rode the elevator back down to her own floor, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. That evening, Lily met Maya for dinner at their favorite Thai place, a hole-in-the-wall restaurant where the pad see ew was perfect and the prices were reasonable. Maya had been demanding a full update since Lily's cryptic text 3 weeks ago, and now, over spring rolls and iced tea, Lily finally told her everything. So wait, Maya said, her eyes wide. The actual CEO came to your apartment? Like, knocked on your door? I was in my pajamas, Lily confirmed. I thought he was there to serve me with a lawsuit or something. And he offered you a job on the spot? Well, technically, he gave me an offer letter and told me to think about it. But yeah, essentially. Maya shook her head in disbelief. This is insane. This is like a movie. This doesn't happen in real life. I know. I keep expecting to wake up and find out it was all a stress dream. How's the actual job? Are people treating you okay? Lily considered the question. Mostly. Some people think I don't deserve it. Some people are waiting for me to fail. But some people, like Jennifer and Michael, have been really supportive. And the work itself is exactly what I'm good at. Of course it is. You're brilliant. Maya speared a spring roll aggressively. I'm just mad it took them this long to figure it out. You should have been doing that job from day one. Maybe, but I don't know if I was ready for it then. Being invisible taught me things, like how to watch people without them noticing, how to read situations, how to survive in spaces that weren't designed for me. That's very zen of you, Maya said dryly. But you shouldn't have had to survive. You should have been able to just be. Yeah, Lily agreed softly, but that's not the world we live in. They ate in comfortable silence for a moment, and then Maya asked the question Lily had been avoiding. So what happens now? You've got the job, you're proving yourself, Patricia apologized. What's next? I don't know, Lily admitted. Keep doing good work, I guess. Keep learning. Try not to let imposter syndrome eat me alive. You don't have imposter syndrome. You have everyone around you is an idiot syndrome. Lily laughed. That's not a thing. It should be. It's way more common than people think. They finished dinner and walked back to the bus stop together, the October night crisp and clear. As they waited, Maya turned to Lily with uncharacteristic seriousness. I'm really proud of you, you know. Not just for getting the job, but for sending that email in the first place. I know how scared you were. I know how hard it is for you to speak up, but you did it anyway. Lily felt tears prick her eyes. I almost didn't. But you did. That's what counts. The bus pulled up and they hugged goodbye. As Lily rode home, watching the city lights blur past the windows, she thought about courage, about how it wasn't the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. She'd been scared when she sent that email. She'd been scared when she walked back into Sterling and Cole. She was still scared every day, if she was honest, but she was learning that scared and capable weren't mutually exclusive, that you could be terrified and still show up, that visibility was uncomfortable but necessary, that sometimes the quiet voices really could change everything. The following Monday, Adrian Cole called Lily to his office. She'd never been to the executive floor before, the 50th floor, where the air felt rarefied and the carpets were thick enough to swallow sound. Adrian's assistant, a polished woman named Margaret, greeted her warmly and showed her in. Adrian's office was exactly what she'd expected. Minimalist, powerful, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of the city that made her feel like she was standing on top of the world. He was on the phone when she entered, but he gestured for her to sit and wrapped up the conversation quickly. Sorry about that, he said, hanging up. Crisis in Singapore. How are you settling in? Good, Lily said. Really good, actually. The work is challenging, but exactly what I want to be doing. Michael speaks very highly of you, says you're his best analyst. Lily felt herself flush. I'm just doing my job. That's what the best people always say. Adrian smiled slightly. I wanted to check in with you personally. Make sure the transition was going smoothly, that you had everything you needed. I do. Everyone in legal has been great. Well, mostly everyone. I heard about the break room incident. Lily's eyes widened. How did you... I make it my business to know what's happening in my company, especially when it concerns people I've personally hired. His expression hardened slightly. If anyone gives you direct trouble, I want to know about it. I can handle it, Lily said quickly. Really, I don't want special treatment. It's not special treatment. It's basic respect, which you've earned. But I understand the impulse to fight your own battles. He leaned back in his chair. Can I tell you why I really asked you here? Lily nodded. Saturday, I went to my daughter's dance recital. First one I've made it to in 2 years. She performed a solo, beautifully, I might add. And afterward at dinner, she talked to me. Actually talked to me about her friends and her school and her dreams. And I realized I'd almost lost that. I'd almost let work consume me so completely that I became a stranger to my own child. He looked at Lily directly. You reminded me why I built this company in the first place. Not for profit or prestige, but to create something meaningful, something that recognized excellence wherever it appeared. I'd lost sight of that. Started believing my own mythology. And it took someone brave enough to speak truth to power to shake me awake. I just sent an email, Lily said quietly. You did more than that. You showed me what courage looks like, what integrity looks like. And you gave me a chance to be better, not just as a CEO, but as a father. His voice was rough with emotion. So thank you. For saving the company, yes, but also for reminding me what matters. Lily felt tears threatening again. You gave me back my career, my life, basically. I should be thanking you. We helped each other, Adrian said simply. That's how it's supposed to work. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Two people from completely different worlds who had somehow found themselves on the same path. There's one more thing, Adrian said. I'm restructuring how we handle contract review. Creating a new team specifically focused on risk assessment, reporting directly to me. I want you to lead it. Lily's heart stopped. What? You'd still work with Michael in legal, but you'd have your own team, your own budget, your own authority. I want someone whose job is to find the problems everyone else misses. Someone who isn't afraid to speak up when something's wrong. Someone who has already proven they can do exactly that. I've been here 3 weeks, Lily managed. And in those 3 weeks, you've found issues in every contract Michael's given you. Your work is thorough, insightful, and exactly what this company needs. The question is whether you're ready for it. Lily thought about the girl who'd sat in that tiny cubicle on the 23rd floor, making $12 an hour and trying to be invisible. She thought about the woman who'd stood in Patricia's office, accepting an apology but not absolution. She thought about all the years she'd spent making herself small, believing that was safer than being seen. And she thought about what Maya had said. Scared and capable weren't mutually exclusive. I'm ready, Lily said, her voice steady. I'm terrified, but I'm ready. Adrian smiled, a real smile, warm and genuine. That's the right answer. We'll start building the team next month. In the meantime, keep doing what you're doing. And Lily? Yes? Thank you for taking a chance on us. I know it wasn't easy. As Lily rode the elevator back down to her floor, she caught her reflection in the polished metal doors. She looked different. Not just the new blazer or the confidence in her posture, but something deeper, something fundamental. She looked like someone who belonged. And for the first time in her life, she felt like it too. 2 months after that conversation in Adrian's office, Lily found herself sitting in a conference room on the executive floor, interviewing candidates for her new team. The Risk Assessment and Contract Integrity Division, RACID, though everyone agreed the acronym needed work, was Adrian's pet project, and he'd given Lily carte blanche to build it from the ground up. It was exhilarating and absolutely terrifying. Tell me about a time you found a mistake that everyone else missed, Lily said to the candidate across from her, a woman named Sarah Chen who had 7 years of experience at a major law firm and a resume that made Lily feel like a fraud for even conducting this interview. Sarah leaned forward, her expression thoughtful. Last year, I was reviewing a licensing agreement for a client in the pharmaceutical industry. Standard stuff, or so everyone thought. But there was a clause about manufacturing rights that used the phrase primary production facilities without defining what that meant. Seems minor, right? Lily nodded, already seeing where this was going. Except our client had recently opened 3 secondary facilities in India that were doing the bulk of their actual production. The primary facility in New Jersey was mostly R&D at that point. If the deal had gone through as written, they would have lost rights to manufacture their own product in the facilities that mattered most. What did you do? I flagged it to the partner on the case. He dismissed it initially, said I was being too literal. So I built a memo showing 3 case precedents where similar vague language had resulted in litigation, cost projections for what it would mean if we lost those manufacturing rights, and a proposed revision to the language. Sarah's smile was tight. He took credit for the catch in the client meeting, but at least it got fixed. Lily understood that feeling viscerally. How did that make you feel? Sarah blinked, clearly not expecting the question. Honestly? Frustrated? Invisible? Like my actual value mattered less than maintaining the hierarchy. And yet you stayed in that environment for 7 years. I had law school debt and rent to pay, and I kept thinking if I just worked hard enough, eventually someone would notice. Someone would care. Sarah met Lily's eyes. But they didn't. So when I saw this position posted, I thought maybe it was worth taking a chance on something different. Lily made a note on her pad. Why do you think you'd be good for this role specifically? Because I know what it's like to see things other people miss and not be heard. Because I'm tired of being right in silence. And because, Sarah hesitated, then continued, because I read about what you did with the Matsuda contract, how you sent that email even though you were just an assistant. That took guts. It gives me hope that maybe this team would actually be different. After Sarah left, Lily sat alone in the conference room, staring at her notes. She'd interviewed 12 candidates so far, and most of them had similar stories. Brilliant people who'd been overlooked, dismissed, or punished for speaking up. People who'd learned to make themselves smaller to survive corporate environments that valued compliance over truth-telling. People just like her. Jennifer Chen poked her head in. How'd it go? I think I found our second team member, Lily said. Sarah Chen. Any relation? Not that I know of. Chen's pretty common. Jennifer came in and sat down. Can I give you some unsolicited advice? Please. Don't just hire people like you. Hire people who share your values, absolutely. But make sure you're building a team with different perspectives, different backgrounds, different ways of thinking. The whole point of this division is to catch what everyone else misses. You can't do that if everyone thinks the same way. Lily absorbed this. You're right. I've been so focused on finding people who understand what it's like to be overlooked that I haven't thought about diversity of thought, Jennifer finished. Look, what you went through matters. It shaped how you see things. But the strongest teams aren't built on shared trauma. They're built on complementary skills and perspectives. How do I find that? Jennifer smiled. You keep interviewing, you stay open, and you trust your instincts. They've been pretty good so far. That evening, Lily worked late again, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. She was reviewing applications for the team's 3rd position when her phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Is this Lily Harper? A woman's voice, professional, but warm. Yes, this is she. My name is Vanessa Martinez. I'm a reporter with the Business Chronicle. I'm working on a piece about corporate culture and whistleblowing, and your name came up. I was hoping we could talk. Lily's stomach dropped. I'm not sure that's a good idea. I understand your hesitation. But I think your story could help a lot of people who are in similar situations, people who see problems but are afraid to speak up because of what might happen to them. I didn't blow a whistle, Lily said carefully. I sent an email to my company's legal department about a contract issue, that's all. An email that cost you your job initially, then led to you being rehired by the CEO himself and put in charge of a new division. That's not just an email. That's a story about courage and accountability. Lily felt heat creeping up her neck. It's really not that dramatic. Maybe not to you, but I've been a business reporter for 15 years, Ms. Harper, and I've seen a lot of people stay silent when they should have spoken up. I've seen companies fail because junior employees were too scared to tell senior leadership the truth. What you did was unusual. It was brave. And I think it matters. I need to think about it, Lily said. Of course, I'll send you my contact information. No pressure. But if you change your mind, I'd love to talk. After hanging up, Lily sat in the quiet of her office, watching the city lights blink on as dusk settled over the skyline. A year ago, the thought of being interviewed by a reporter would have sent her into a panic attack. The idea of her name in a newspaper, her story public, her invisibility permanently shattered, it would have been unthinkable. But now? Now she wasn't sure how she felt about it. She pulled out her phone and texted Maya. "Reporter wants to interview me about the Matsuda thing. Thoughts?" The response came quickly. "Do it. Your story could help someone else find their courage." Then another text. "Also, I want to be able to say I knew you when." Lily smiled despite her anxiety. But before she could respond, another text came through, this one from Adrian. "Can you come by my office tomorrow at 9? There's someone I'd like you to meet." She texted back her confirmation and gathered her things to leave. As she rode the elevator down, she thought about Vanessa Martinez's words. Your story could help a lot of people. Was that true? Or was it just a reporter looking for a good angle? The next morning, Lily arrived at Adrian's office at exactly 9 o'clock. Margaret ushered her in immediately, and Lily found Adrian standing by the windows with another man, tall, perhaps in his early 40s, with kind eyes and an easy smile. "Lily, this is Dr. James Chen. He runs a nonprofit called Voice Forward that works with young professionals on advocacy and self-confidence. James, this is Lily Harper, the woman I was telling you about." James extended his hand warmly. "It's wonderful to meet you. Adrian's been singing your praises." "He's been generous," Lily said, shaking his hand. "He's been accurate," James corrected gently. "I've heard about what you did. Identifying that contract issue, speaking up despite the risk. That takes real courage." Adrian gestured for them all to sit. "James and I have been talking about a partnership. Voice Forward runs workshops and mentorship programs for young professionals who struggle with self-advocacy, people who are brilliant but have been conditioned to stay quiet. I thought your experience might be valuable to them." Lily looked between the two men. "You want me to speak at something?" "Eventually, maybe," James said. "But first, I was hoping you might be willing to share your story in a less formal setting. We have monthly gatherings, small groups, very low-key, where professionals share experiences and strategies. Hearing from someone like you, someone who took a risk and saw it pay off, could be really powerful for our participants." "I'm not a public speaker," Lily said immediately. "I'm barely comfortable leading my own team meetings." "Which makes you exactly the kind of person our participants need to hear from," James replied. "They don't need polished motivational speakers. They need real people who understand what it's like to be afraid and do it anyway." Lily's phone buzzed in her pocket, probably Vanessa Martinez following up. The universe seemed determined to push her into visibility whether she liked it or not. "Can I think about it?" she asked. "Of course," James said. "Take all the time you need, but I hope you'll say yes. Your story matters more than you realize." After James left, Lily stayed behind with Adrian. "You didn't have to set that up," she said. "I know, but I think you underestimate your impact. What you did didn't just save a deal, it changed how I run this company. It changed how I think about leadership. And it changed me personally." He picked up the photo of Emma from his desk. "I had dinner with my daughter 3 times last week. We're planning a camping trip next month. None of that would have happened if you hadn't sent that email. You're giving me too much credit. You're not giving yourself enough." Adrian set the photo down. "I'm not trying to turn you into some corporate hero, Lily, but I am trying to help you see that your voice has power, that your perspective has value, that the things you've experienced, being overlooked, dismissed, underestimated, give you insight that could help other people." Lily was quiet for a moment. "There's a reporter who wants to interview me for a piece on corporate whistleblowing." Adrian raised his eyebrows. "Vanessa Martinez? You know her?" "She called me too. Asked for comment on your story. I told her I'd support whatever you decided." He leaned forward. "Do you want to do it?" "I don't know. Part of me thinks it could help people, like everyone keeps saying, but part of me just wants to do my work and not be visible like that." "Both feelings are valid," Adrian said. "But can I tell you what I think?" Lily nodded. "I think you've spent your whole life trying to be invisible because it felt safer. And maybe it was, for a while. But you're not that person anymore. You're leading a team. You're making decisions that affect this company. You have a voice here. And if you use that voice to help even one person find their own courage, isn't that worth the discomfort? Lily thought about all the people she'd interviewed for her team, all those brilliant minds who'd been trained to stay quiet, to accept less than they deserved, to believe their insights didn't matter. What if hearing her story helped even one of them speak up sooner, stand up for themselves better? "I'll do it," she said. The interview and James's thing, both of them, even though the thought of it makes me want to throw up. Adrian smiled. That's usually how you know it's worth doing. The interview with Vanessa Martinez took place the following week in a quiet coffee shop downtown. Lily had spent the previous 3 nights practicing what she might say, trying to anticipate questions, second-guessing her decision approximately every 15 minutes. Vanessa turned out to be a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a gentle manner that put Lily somewhat at ease. They ordered coffee and settled into a corner booth. "Let's start simple," Vanessa said, pulling out a recorder after asking Lily's permission. "Tell me about that night, the night you sent the email." Lily took a breath and let herself remember. The empty office, the humming lights, the contract on her screen, and the moment she realized what she was looking at. "I was terrified," she said honestly. "I knew what had happened the last time I spoke up about something. I knew I could lose my job. But I also knew that staying silent would mean watching the company walk into a disaster I could have prevented. And I couldn't live with that." "What made the difference? What pushed you to send it despite the fear?" Lily considered this. "I think I'd spent so long making myself invisible that I'd almost forgotten I existed. But that night, I had a choice. I could keep being invisible and safe, or I could be visible and useful. And I realized that safety at the cost of my own integrity wasn't actually safety at all. It was just a different kind of prison." Vanessa wrote something in her notebook. "You were fired the next day." "My contract was terminated," Lily corrected automatically, then caught herself. "But yes, I was let go because I'd violated the chain of command and made my supervisor look bad. It didn't matter that I was right. It mattered that I'd stepped out of my place." How did that feel? Devastating, like confirmation of everything I'd been afraid of. That speaking up was dangerous. That people like me, people without power or position, don't get to have opinions that matter. But that's not where your story ends. "No," Lily said softly. "Adrian Cole read my email. He verified what I'd found, and then he came to my apartment and offered me a job doing exactly what I'd been good at all along." "Why do you think he did that?" Lily had thought about this question a lot. "I think because he saw something he recognized. Maybe not in me specifically, but in what I represented. The idea that merit shouldn't depend on visibility, that good work can come from anywhere, that sometimes the quietest voices are the ones you need to hear most." They talked for another hour, covering everything from Lily's background to her new team to her thoughts on corporate culture and power dynamics. Vanessa asked tough questions but listened carefully to the answers. By the end, Lily felt wrung out, but also strangely lighter. "One last question," Vanessa said as they were wrapping up. "What would you say to someone who's in the position you were in a year ago? Someone who sees a problem but is afraid to speak up?" Lily thought about Sarah Chen, about all the candidates she'd interviewed, about every person who'd ever felt too small to matter. "I'd say fear is information, not instruction. It tells you that something matters, that there's risk involved, but it doesn't tell you what to do. That choice is yours." She paused. "I'd also say that you're probably not as invisible as you think you are. Someone sees you. Someone will remember that you spoke up, even if it doesn't feel that way in the moment. And the act of being brave, even if it doesn't work out the way you hoped, changes you. It changed me. I learned I could survive being seen. That's a powerful thing to know about yourself." Vanessa smiled. "That's perfect. Thank you, Lily. I think this is going to be a really important piece." 2 weeks later, the article ran on the front page of the Business Chronicle's weekly edition. The headline read, "The Assistant Who Saved a Company and Changed How It Sees Its Employees." Lily read it on her phone during her morning commute, her heart racing. Vanessa had been fair and thoughtful in her writing, focusing not on sensationalism, but on the systemic issues that had allowed Lily to be overlooked in the first place. She'd interviewed Adrian, Michael Sullivan, even Jennifer Chen. She'd gotten quotes from workplace culture experts about the importance of psychological safety and flattened hierarchies, and she'd told Lily's story with a respect that made Lily's throat tight. By the time Lily got to the office, her inbox was flooded. Emails from former colleagues congratulating her. Messages from strangers sharing their own stories of being dismissed or overlooked. Invitations to speak at conferences, participate in panels, contribute to think pieces about workplace culture. It was overwhelming and humbling and more than a little surreal. But the message that stuck with her most came from an email address she didn't recognize. The subject line read, "Thank you for speaking up." She opened it. "Ms. Harper, you don't know me, but I'm a junior accountant at a mid-sized firm here in the city. Last month, I noticed some irregularities in our expense reporting that I thought might be fraudulent. I was going to stay quiet about it because I'm new and I didn't want to make waves. Then I read your article this morning. I reported it to my supervisor an hour ago. I'm terrified, but I know I did the right thing. Thank you for showing me that it's possible to be brave even when you're scared. Your story gave me permission to use my own voice." Taylor M. Lily read the email 3 times, tears blurring her vision. This was why visibility mattered. Not for her own recognition or advancement, but because her story might give someone else the courage to speak their own truth. She forwarded the email to Adrian with a simple note. "I think this is what you meant about impact." His response came quickly. "Exactly this. Proud of you." The first Voice Forward gathering that Lily attended was held in a community center on a Thursday evening. About 30 young professionals sat in a circle of folding chairs, ranging in age from early 20s to late 30s, representing a mix of industries and backgrounds. James Chen introduced Lily simply. "This is Lily Harper. Some of you may have read about her recently. She's agreed to share her experience with us tonight." Lily stood, her hands shaking slightly, and looked at the faces turned toward her. She saw herself in so many of them. The careful neutrality, the practiced invisibility, the fear of taking up too much space. "I'm not great at public speaking," she began, her voice steadier than she expected. "A year ago, I would have rather died than stand in front of a group like this. But I'm learning that the things that scare us most are often the things we most need to do." She told her story. Not the polished version from the article, but the raw, messy truth of it. The humiliation of being dismissed by Patricia. The terror of sending that email. The devastation of being fired. The disbelief when Adrian showed up at her apartment. The imposter syndrome that still kept her up at night sometimes. "I wish I could tell you that speaking up always works out," she said. "That if you're brave, you'll automatically be rewarded. But that's not always true. Sometimes you speak up and you get punished for it. Sometimes you do the right thing and it costs you everything." She saw some faces fall and she understood. They wanted a fairy tale. A guarantee. "But here's what I've learned," she continued. "Even when it doesn't work out the way you hoped, the act of speaking up changes you. It teaches you that you can survive being seen. That your voice has power even when people try to silence it. That you're stronger than you thought you were. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, the right person hears you. And everything changes." After she finished, the room was quiet for a moment. Then a young woman in the front row raised her hand tentatively. "What do you do with the fear?" she asked. "I mean, it doesn't just go away, does it?" "No," Lily said honestly. "I'm still scared all the time. Scared I'm not qualified enough. Scared I'll mess up. Scared people will realize I don't belong. But I've learned to do things scared, to recognize that fear and courage aren't opposites, they're companions. You can't be brave if you're not afraid first." Another hand went up, a man in his 30s. "How do you know when something is worth speaking up about? How do you tell the difference between something that matters and just office politics?" "Ask yourself this," Lily said. "If you stay silent, who gets hurt? If the answer is the company loses money or someone else takes credit, that might not be worth the risk. But if the answer is someone could be harmed or something fundamentally wrong will happen, then you probably need to speak up, regardless of the personal cost." They talked for another hour, and with each question, Lily felt something shift inside her. These people weren't just listening to her story, they were trusting her with their own fears and struggles. And in that trust, she found a kind of purpose she'd never experienced before. This was what her voice could do. Not just save a company or advance her career, but help other people find their own courage. After the session ended, several people came up to thank her personally. One woman, who introduced herself as Rebecca, said something that stuck with Lily. "I've been in marketing for 8 years, and I've never once voiced a dissenting opinion in a meeting. I just smile and nod and go along with whatever the senior people say, even when I know they're wrong. But listening to you talk about the cost of staying invisible..." Rebecca's eyes were bright with emotion. "I don't want to live like that anymore. I don't want to get to the end of my career and realize I never actually contributed anything authentic." "You can change that," Lily said gently. "Starting tomorrow. Starting right now. I know, and I'm going to try. Thank you for showing me it's possible." On the drive home, Lily called Maya. "How'd it go?" Maya asked immediately. "It was terrifying and wonderful, and I think I might want to do it again." "Look at you becoming a motivational speaker." "I wouldn't go that far, but there's something powerful about sharing stories, about letting people know they're not alone in how they feel." "You're finding your purpose," Maya said simply. "This is what you're supposed to be doing, not just the contract work, but this, helping people find their voices." Lily thought about that. For so long, she'd defined herself by what she could analyze, what she could catch, what she could prevent. But maybe her real value wasn't just in what she could see, but in what she could help others see in themselves. "Maybe you're right," she said softly. 3 months into leading her team, Lily faced her first real crisis. One of her analysts, a brilliant woman named Kara, who'd been with them for 6 weeks, found a problem in a contract that the executive team didn't want to acknowledge. The deal in question was with Thornfield Enterprises, a manufacturing company that Sterling and Cole had been pursuing for over a year. It was a $50 million investment, and everyone from Adrian down to the junior analysts was excited about it. The contracts had been reviewed, the terms negotiated, and they were 48 hours from closing. Then Kara came to Lily's office, pale and shaking. "We have a problem," she said, closing the door behind her. Lily looked up from her computer. "What kind of problem?" "Thornfield's environmental compliance records. They're filing all the right paperwork, saying all the right things, but when I cross-reference their EPA reports with their actual production outputs, the numbers don't match, like not even close." "Show me." Kara spread out her analysis on Lily's desk, charts and graphs and highlighted discrepancies that painted a clear picture. Thornfield was claiming to meet environmental standards while producing far more waste than their compliance reports suggested. Either their production numbers were lies or their environmental reporting was. Either way, it was fraud. "This could sink the whole deal," Kara said, her voice tight with anxiety. "Everyone's so invested in this. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm misreading the data?" Lily looked at the young woman in front of her, 24 years old, fresh out of graduate school, terrified of making waves, and saw herself a year ago. "You're not wrong," Lily said firmly. "This is exactly the kind of thing we're supposed to catch. But you're right that it's going to cause problems. So we need to present this carefully and make sure our analysis is airtight." They spent the next 4 hours building a comprehensive report, checking and rechecking every number, documenting every source. By the time they finished, it was nearly midnight, and Lily's eyes were burning with fatigue. "What happens now?" Kara asked. "Now we take this to Adrian," Lily said. "Tomorrow morning, first thing." "What if he doesn't want to hear it? What if he's so committed to the deal that he dismisses the evidence?" "Then we'll deal with that when it happens. But we have to give him the chance to do the right thing. That's our job." Kara nodded, though she still looked uncertain. "How do you do this? How do you stay calm when you're about to blow up a deal everyone wants?" Lily thought about that email she'd sent a year ago, her finger hovering over the send button. "I'm not calm. I'm terrified. But I'm also certain. And sometimes certainty has to be enough." The next morning, Lily and Kara presented their findings to Adrian in his office. He listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. When they finished, he sat back in his chair and was quiet for a long moment. "Michael needs to see this," he finally said. "And the board. This changes everything." "I know," Lily said. "I'm sorry." "Don't apologize for doing your job correctly." Adrian's voice was firm. "This is exactly why I created your division. We could have walked into a massive liability, potentially criminal liability, if Thornfield's been falsifying environmental reports." He looked at Kara. "Good catch. Excellent work. Kara's relief was visible. Thank you, sir. After Kara left, Adrian turned to Lily. This is going to create chaos. The executive team had champagne ordered for the closing celebration. The board's been counting on this deal for quarterly projections. I know. And you're still certain this is right? Completely certain. Adrian nodded slowly. Then we pull the plug. I'll handle the fallout. You and your team did what you were supposed to do. The rest is on me. But the fallout was worse than anyone anticipated. The executive team was furious. The board demanded explanations. And within 24 hours, word had leaked to the press that Sterling and Cole had backed out of the Thornfield deal at the last minute, sending Thornfield's stock plummeting and raising questions about what Sterling and Cole had discovered. Lily found herself called into a board meeting, the first time she'd ever been in the same room with the company's directors. They sat around a massive table, powerful men and women who controlled billions in assets, and they did not look happy. The board chair, a silver-haired man named Robert Winters, addressed her directly. Ms. Harper, you understand that your team's report cost this company a significant opportunity? I understand that our team identified a legal and environmental liability that could have cost the company far more, Lily replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Based on what? Data analysis? Educated guesses? Based on documented discrepancies between reported compliance and actual production outputs. Based on patterns consistent with systematic fraud. Based on risk assessment, which is literally what my division was created to do. Another board member, a woman named Susan Kraft, leaned forward. Mr. Cole has explained your reasoning, but I have to ask, did you consider the broader implications, the market reaction, the message this sends to other potential partners? My job isn't to consider market optics, Lily said. My job is to identify risks that could harm this company. That's what I did. Robert's eyes narrowed. You're very confident for someone who's been in this role for 3 months. I'm confident in the data. Whether you choose to act on it is above my pay grade, but I won't apologize for doing what I was hired to do. The room went quiet. Lily could feel Adrian's eyes on her, but she kept her gaze on Robert. Finally, Robert sighed. Well, at least you have conviction. Adrian, your thoughts? Adrian stood, commanding the room effortlessly. My thought is that we hired Lily specifically to find these kinds of problems, to speak up when something's wrong, regardless of how inconvenient the timing might be. If we punish her for doing that job well, we're sending a message that we only want truth-telling when it's comfortable, and that's not the company I'm trying to build. Susan nodded slowly. The SEC opened an investigation into Thornfield this morning based on an anonymous tip. If even half of what Ms. Harper found is accurate, we dodged a significant bullet. The tension in the room shifted. Robert looked at Lily with something that might have been respect. Keep doing what you're doing, Ms. Harper, he said. But maybe give us a heads up before you blow up our next big deal. It was said with a hint of humor, and Lily allowed herself a small smile. I'll do my best, sir. As she left the boardroom, Adrian fell into step beside her. That was well done, he said quietly. I thought I was about to get fired. Again. Not even close. They needed to see that you couldn't be intimidated. Now they know. Is that why you didn't defend me more? You wanted them to see me stand up for myself? Adrian smiled slightly. You didn't need me to defend you. You did fine on your own. Back in her office, Lily found her entire team waiting. Sarah, Kara, and the 3 others she'd hired over the past months. They looked anxious. Are we in trouble? Sarah asked. No, Lily said. We did our job. And for the first time in my career, I got to watch people in power choose integrity over convenience. It's not always going to work out that way. But today, it did. And that matters. She looked at each of them, these brilliant people who'd been overlooked or dismissed in their previous roles, who'd taken a chance on joining a new division with an untested leader. This is what we're here for, she said. Not to make people comfortable, not to rubber stamp deals everyone wants, but to find the truth, even when it's inconvenient. Especially when it's inconvenient. Can you all live with that? They nodded, one by one. Good, Lily said, because I have a feeling this won't be the last time we make people uncomfortable, and I need to know you'll have my back when it gets hard. We will, Kara said firmly. You had mine, I'll have yours. The others murmured agreement, and Lily felt something warm expand in her chest. This was what a team felt like, what trust felt like, what it meant to build something that mattered with people who believed in the same things she did. That night, Lily stayed late again, but this time it wasn't because she was afraid or trying to prove herself. It was because she loved what she was doing. She was good at it, and for the first time in her professional life, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Her phone buzzed with the text from Maya. "Saw the news about Thornfield. You okay?" Lily smiled and typed back. "More than okay. I think I finally figured out what I'm doing. Being a badass?" Something like that. She packed up her things and headed for the elevator, nodding to the cleaning crew who were just starting their shift. In the lobby, Jerry, the security guard, waved her over. "Miss Harper, I just wanted to say, I heard what happened with that Thornfield deal. My daughter works in compliance at her company, and she's always scared to speak up when she sees problems. I told her about you tonight, about how you keep doing the right thing even when it's hard. It gave her courage, so thank you for that." Lily felt tears prick her eyes. "Tell your daughter she's not alone, and that speaking up gets easier with practice." "I will. You have a good night." As Lily stepped out into the cold night air, she thought about all the ways her life had changed in the past year. The new job, the new team, the new visibility that had felt so terrifying and now felt almost natural. But the biggest change wasn't external. It was internal. She'd learned that her voice mattered, that her insights had value, that being seen was uncomfortable but necessary, that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. And she'd learned that sometimes, when you choose to be brave, you give other people permission to be brave too. That was the real power of visibility. Not what it did for you, but what it made possible for others. Lily walked to the bus stop with her head held high, no longer trying to make herself small, no longer invisible, just herself. Finally, fully herself. And that was enough. 6 months later, on a spring morning that felt too beautiful for corporate warfare, Lily walked into her office to find an envelope on her desk. Not email, not a message through the company portal. An actual physical envelope, cream-colored and expensive, with her name written in elegant script across the front. She set down her coffee and opened it carefully. Inside was a single card, embossed with the logo of Whitmore and Associates, one of the most prestigious law firms in the country. Ms. Harper, we would like to discuss a unique opportunity with you. Please contact my office at your earliest convenience. The compensation package would be substantial. Discretion appreciated. Marcus Whitmore, senior partner. Lily read it twice, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. Marcus Whitmore didn't personally recruit people. He was a legend in corporate law, the kind of attorney who negotiated billion-dollar mergers and had senators on speed dial. The fact that he knew her name, much less wanted to meet with her, was surreal. Sarah knocked on her doorframe. "Morning, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I think I might have," Lily said, handing her the card. Sarah's eyes widened as she read it. "Holy shit! Marcus Whitmore? Lily, do you know what this means? He doesn't recruit unless he's serious. If he's reaching out, it's because he wants to poach you for something big." "Or he wants to neutralize me," Lily said quietly. "Get me out of Sterling and Cole before I cause more problems for deals he's working on." That's paranoid. That's strategic. The Thornfield deal embarrassed a lot of people, including the law firm that vetted their compliance. Whitmore and Associates represented them, remember? Sarah sat down across from her. "So what are you going to do?" "I don't know yet, but I should probably tell Adrian." Except Adrian was in Tokyo for a week-long series of meetings, and this felt like the kind of thing that shouldn't wait. Lily stared at the card for another moment, then made a decision. She called the number listed. A polished receptionist answered on the second ring. "Whitmore and Associates, how may I direct your call?" "This is Lily Harper. I'm returning Mr. Whitmore's message." "One moment, please, Miss Harper." The hold music was classical, expensive sounding. Then a male voice came on the line, smooth and confident. "Ms. Harper, thank you for calling back so promptly. I'm Marcus Whitmore. I've been following your work with great interest." "Following my work or following the deals I've killed?" He laughed, genuine and warm. "Direct. I appreciate that, both, if I'm honest. You have a remarkable eye for detail and a willingness to speak uncomfortable truths. That's a rare combination. What do you want, Mr. Whitmore? I want to offer you a position. Head of Risk Assessment for our corporate division. You'd be overseeing due diligence on our largest clients, with full authority to halt any deal you deem problematic. Salary in the mid-six figures, full benefits, and a signing bonus that would make your current compensation look like tip money. Lily's breath caught despite herself. Mid-six figures. She was making $75,000 now, which felt like wealth compared to where she'd been. But what he was describing was life-changing money. Why me? She asked. Because you're not afraid to be the person who says no. Most people in your position are too worried about their jobs, their reputations, their relationships with senior leadership, but you've proven you'll prioritize accuracy over popularity. That's invaluable in my business. Your business is closing deals, Mr. Whitmore. My job is finding reasons not to close them. That seems like a fundamental conflict. On the contrary, my business is protecting my clients' interests. Sometimes that means closing deals. Sometimes it means walking away from deals. I need someone who can tell the difference and isn't afraid to tell me when I'm wrong. He paused. I'll be honest with you, Ms. Harper. The Thornfield situation was embarrassing for my firm. We should have caught what you caught. We didn't. That's on us. But rather than resent you for it, I'd prefer to work with you. You mean control me? Oh, I mean collaborate with you. There's a difference. Lily thought about this carefully. I need to think about it. Of course, take whatever time you need. But I will say this. Adrian Cole built something special at Sterling & Cole, and he took a chance on you when no one else would. That loyalty matters. But you should also ask yourself where you'll have the most impact. Running a small division at one company or shaping risk assessment across dozens of major deals at one of the most influential firms in the country? After she hung up, Lily sat in her office for a long time, the cards still in her hand. The smart play would be to say no immediately, to stay loyal to Adrian and Sterling and Cole, to continue building the division she'd created from nothing. But another part of her wondered if Marcus was right. If she could have more impact somewhere else. If staying was about loyalty or about fear of change. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer Chen. Lunch? Need to pick your brain about something. They met at their usual spot, a sandwich place 3 blocks from the office where the turkey avocado was perfect and the owner knew them by name. Jennifer ordered first, then turned to Lily with an expression that was harder to read than usual. I'm leaving Sterling & Cole, Jennifer said without preamble once they'd sat down. Lily nearly choked on her water. What? I got an offer from Dynamics Corp, VP of Legal Operations. It's a huge step up, Lily. More responsibility, better pay, and honestly, I'm ready for something new. I've been at Sterling & Cole for 8 years. It's time. When did this happen? The offer came through last week. I've been wrestling with it ever since. But I made my decision this morning. I'm giving my notice tomorrow. Lily felt something twist in her chest. Jennifer had been her mentor, her guide, one of the first people to make her feel like she belonged in legal. The thought of navigating Sterling & Cole without her felt disorienting. I'm happy for you, Lily said, and meant it despite her own feelings. You deserve this. Thank you. But I wanted to tell you first because Jennifer hesitated. Because I think you might be facing a similar choice soon. What do you mean? People talk, Lily. Word is that Marcus Whitmore's been asking about you, that he's interested in bringing you to his firm. Is that true? Lily didn't see the point in lying. He reached out this morning. Jennifer nodded slowly. Are you going to take it? I don't know. Part of me feels like I owe it to Adrian to stay. He gave me everything. Adrian gave you an opportunity? Jennifer corrected gently. But you're the one who seized it. You're the one who built that team, who made the tough calls, who proved yourself over and over again. You don't owe anyone your entire career because they treated you fairly once. That feels mercenary. It's not mercenary, it's professional. Look, I love Sterling & Cole. I love what we've built here, but I also know that growth sometimes requires leaving comfortable places. And I think you need to ask yourself what you really want, not what you think you should want, not what would make you look loyal or grateful, but what would actually fulfill you. Lily picked at her sandwich. What if I don't know the answer to that? Then you figure it out before you make any decisions. But don't stay somewhere out of guilt or fear. Stay because it's where you want to be. Otherwise, you're just trading one kind of invisibility for another. That evening, Lily went to the Voice Forward gathering. She'd been attending regularly for months now, sometimes as a speaker, sometimes just as a participant. The community had become important to her, a space where she could be vulnerable about her struggles without worrying about professional consequences. Tonight's topic was knowing when to leave, and the timing felt almost cosmic. James Chen facilitated the discussion, opening with a question. How do you know when it's time to move on from something that's been good to you? A man named David spoke first. I stayed at my last job for 3 years longer than I should have because I felt guilty about leaving. My boss had taken a chance on me, promoted me when no one else would. But I was miserable. The work wasn't challenging anymore and I'd stopped growing. When I finally left, my boss told me he'd been expecting it for years. He wasn't hurt. He was relieved that I'd finally prioritized my own development. A woman named Priya added, I think we confuse loyalty with stagnation sometimes. Like staying somewhere forever is a virtue, even when it stops serving us. But real loyalty isn't about never leaving. It's about contributing fully while you're there and leaving well when it's time. Lily found herself speaking without planning to. What if you leave and it's the wrong choice? What if the new place isn't better? What if you regret it? James looked at her thoughtfully. Then you'll have learned something, and you'll make a different choice next time. But you can't let fear of the wrong choice prevent you from making any choice at all. That's just another form of hiding. The words hit harder than Lily expected. She'd spent so much of her life hiding, making herself small, avoiding risk. She thought that taking the job at Sterling and Cole had changed that, but maybe she'd just found a new, more comfortable place to hide. After the session, James pulled her aside. You've got a decision to make, he said. Not a question, a statement. How did you know? Because I recognize that look. You're trying to logic your way through something that requires both logic and intuition. What does your gut tell you? Lily thought about it. My gut says I'm scared, of leaving, of staying, of making the wrong choice and disappointing people. And if you removed other people from the equation, if it was just about what you wanted, what would you choose? I don't know, Lily admitted. I've spent so long thinking about what other people need from me that I'm not sure I know how to think about what I need for myself. James smiled. Then maybe that's the real work you need to do. Figure out who Lily Harper is when she's not trying to prove anything to anyone. What does she want? What matters to her? What would make her feel fulfilled, not just successful? Lily carried those questions home with her, turning them over in her mind like smooth stones. In her apartment, a nicer one now, with actual separation between the bedroom and living space, but still modest by most standards, she made tea and sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker on as dusk settled. Her phone rang. Adrian, calling from Tokyo. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time, he said when she answered. Not at all. How's Tokyo? Productive. Exhausting. I miss Emma. He paused. I heard Marcus Whitmore reached out to you. Lily closed her eyes. Of course he'd heard. News travels fast. It does when Marcus calls me directly to let me know he's courting one of my best people. Adrian's voice was neutral, unreadable. He wanted my permission, apparently. Very old school of him. What did you tell him? I told him you don't need my permission to explore opportunities, that you're not my property to loan out or withhold, and that if he wanted to recruit you, he should make his best offer and let you decide. You're not angry? Why would I be angry? You've built something remarkable here, Lily. You've changed how this company operates. You've mentored people who needed mentoring. You've done everything I could have asked for, and more. If someone else recognizes that value and wants to offer you more than I can, that's not betrayal. That's the market working as it should. Lily felt tears prick her eyes. I don't know what to do. Then let me ask you this. When you imagine yourself a year from now, 5 years from now, which version of yourself feels more alive? The one working at Sterling and Cole, or the one working at Whitmore and Associates? It was a good question, a hard question. I don't know, Lily said honestly. At Sterling and Cole, I have people who trust me, a team I built, work that matters. But at Whitmore, I could potentially influence dozens of deals instead of just ours. I could have impact at a scale I can't even imagine right now. Those are both good answers, Adrian said, but they're both about impact on others. What about impact on you? Which path would make you happier? Lily was quiet for a long moment. I think I'm afraid that if I leave, I'll lose the thing that makes me special. That I'll just be another high-priced consultant instead of the person who changed things at Sterling and Cole. Like my story will stop mattering. Your story will always matter, Lily. It's already changed lives. I've gotten emails from people who read that article about you, who heard you speak at Voice Forward, who learned from your example. That doesn't go away because you changed jobs. If anything, taking a bigger role somewhere else just proves that quiet voices can rise to the highest levels. That's powerful. You're making it very easy for me to leave, Lily said, a slight smile in her voice despite the tears on her cheeks. I'm making it possible for you to choose freely. There's a difference. If you stay, I want it to be because this is where you want to be. Not because you feel obligated, not because you're afraid, but because the work fulfills you and the path forward excites you. After they hung up, Lily sat in the gathering darkness, watching the city breathe and pulse below her. She thought about the girl she'd been a year and a half ago, terrified and invisible, making $12 an hour and believing that was all she deserved. She thought about the woman she'd become, leading a team, speaking at gatherings, changing how one of the country's largest companies thought about risk and truth-telling, and she thought about who she might become next. The next morning, Lily called Marcus Whitmore back. I appreciate your offer, she said carefully, but I need to understand something first. You said you want someone who isn't afraid to kill deals, but in my experience, law firms don't actually want that. They want someone who makes them look thorough while ultimately greenlighting what the client wants. How do I know this offer is genuine and not just a way to neutralize someone who's become inconvenient? Marcus was quiet for a moment. That's a fair question, and I can't prove my intentions except through action, but I can tell you this. Last month, we walked away from a $70 million client because our due diligence revealed practices I wasn't comfortable endorsing. It cost us revenue and reputation. Some of my partners were furious, but I slept fine that night because I knew we'd done the right thing. One instance doesn't make a pattern. You're right, which is why I'm inviting you to talk to our current risk assessment team. Ask them how often I've overridden their recommendations. Ask them whether they feel pressured to reach conclusions that serve our bottom line. Ask them anything you want. If you don't like what you hear, walk away. But at least give me a chance to prove this is real. Lily considered this. Okay, I'll meet with your team, but I'm not making any promises. Fair enough. How's Friday at 2? She agreed, hung up, and then sat with the weight of what she was doing. She was actually exploring this, actually considering leaving the place that had saved her, the people who had believed in her. Sarah appeared in her doorway. You look stressed. Everything okay? Lily gestured for her to close the door and sit down. Then she told her everything, the Whitmore offer, the conversation with Jennifer, the meeting she'd just scheduled. Sarah listened without interrupting. When Lily finished, she was quiet for a moment. Can I be honest? Sarah finally said. Please. If you leave, this team falls apart. Not immediately, maybe. But you're the reason we exist. You're the one who built the culture, who fights for us when executives push back, who makes us feel safe enough to speak uncomfortable truths. Without you, we're just another compliance department that gets ignored when it's inconvenient. Lily felt the weight of that responsibility settle on her shoulders. I know, that's part of what makes this so hard. But, Sarah continued, I also think you'd regret staying if you're only doing it for us. We're not your responsibility, Lily. We're grown adults with our own careers to manage. And honestly, if you leave because something better came along, that sets a precedent too. It shows us that we don't have to stay somewhere out of guilt, that we can pursue opportunities that challenge us, that growth matters. When did you get so wise? Sarah smiled. I learned from the best. Friday afternoon, Lily walked into the offices of Whitmore and Associates in a high-rise downtown. The space was intimidating, all marble and glass and quiet power. The receptionist directed her to a conference room where 3 people were waiting. Marcus Whitmore stood to greet her, tall and distinguished with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Next to him were 2 others, a woman in her 40s named Dr. Patricia Wells, who headed their risk assessment division, and a younger man named James Park, who worked as their senior analyst. Thank you for coming, Marcus said, shaking her hand. I've asked Patricia and James to join us because I want you to hear from them directly about how we operate. No prepared speeches, just honest conversation. They sat, and Lily jumped right in. How often does Mr. Whitmore override your risk assessments? Patricia answered without hesitation. In 3 years, twice. Both times he explained his reasoning, and both times I understood the logic even if I disagreed with the conclusion. More often, he accepts our recommendations even when they cost the firm money or client relationships. Give me an example. James spoke up. 6 months ago, we were vetting a pharmaceutical merger. Everything looked clean on the surface, but I found patterns in their clinical trial data that suggested they might be selectively publishing results. Not outright fraud, but ethically questionable. I flagged it. Marcus pulled us out of the deal the next day, even though it would have been a massive payday. What happened to the deal? Another firm took it on, Patricia said. 3 months later, the FDA opened an investigation into those exact practices. The merger fell apart, and the firm that represented them is now facing a malpractice suit. We dodged a bullet because Marcus listened. Lily looked at Marcus. Why should I believe that would continue if I worked here? That you wouldn't start pressuring me to be less rigorous once I was on the payroll? Because my reputation is worth more than any individual deal, Marcus said simply. I've spent 40 years building a firm known for integrity. I'm not going to compromise that for short-term profit. And frankly, I need someone like you because I'm getting older and the landscape is getting more complex. I need eyes I can trust to see what I might miss. They talked for another hour, covering everything from compensation to autonomy to the kinds of deals she'd be working on. By the end, Lily had to admit it was compelling. The resources at her disposal would be enormous. The impact potential was undeniable, and Marcus seemed genuine in his commitment to ethical practice. But something still didn't sit right. As she was leaving, Patricia walked her to the elevator. "Can I give you some advice?" Patricia asked. "Please." "I left a company I loved to come here. Best decision I ever made, career-wise. But I also lost something in the transition. The relationships, the sense of mission, the feeling that I was building something rather than just maintaining it. Make sure you know what you're trading before you trade it. Money and prestige are wonderful, but they don't keep you warm at night when you're questioning whether your work matters." In the elevator down, Lily thought about those words. What was she trading? What did she actually want? That weekend, she did something she hadn't done in months. She went to visit her parents' graves. They were buried in a small cemetery outside the city, side by side under a maple tree that was just beginning to leaf out with spring growth. Lily brought flowers, daisies for her mother, who had loved simple things, and roses for her father, who had believed in elegance. She sat on the grass between their headstones and talked to them the way she had when she was younger, when they were alive and she could tell them anything. "I don't know what to do," she said quietly. "You always taught me to be grateful for opportunities, to work hard, to never take anything for granted. And I've tried. I really have. But now I have this choice, and I don't know which path honors what you taught me." The wind rustled through the maple leaves, and Lily closed her eyes. "Mom, you were always so practical. You would have told me to take the money, to secure my future, to think long-term. And Dad, you were all about integrity and doing work that mattered. You would have told me to stay where I feel like I'm making a difference." She sat in silence for a while, letting the spring sun warm her face. "But maybe," she said slowly, "maybe the question isn't what you would have wanted me to do. Maybe it's what I want to do. What Lily Harper wants? Not the daughter who's trying to make you proud, not the employee who's trying to prove herself worthy, but just me." And sitting there between her parents' graves, watching clouds drift across a perfect blue sky, Lily finally understood what her gut had been trying to tell her all along. She didn't want to leave Sterling and Cole. Not because she was afraid of change or felt obligated to stay, but because the work there fulfilled her in a way that no amount of money or prestige could replicate. She loved her team. She loved the feeling of building something from nothing. She loved working with people who had been overlooked the way she'd been overlooked, helping them find their voices the way she'd found hers. At Whitmore & Associates, she'd be one player in an established system. At Sterling & Cole, she was creating the system, and that mattered to her more than anything Marcus could offer. On Monday morning, Lily called Marcus and declined his offer. "I appreciate your confidence in me," she said, "but I've realized I'm not done building what I started at Sterling & Cole. Maybe in a few years, if the opportunity is still available. But for now, this is where I need to be." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "I'm disappointed, but I respect your decision. And Lily, the fact that you had the courage to say no to this kind of offer tells me I was right about you. Keep doing what you're doing. The industry needs more people like you." Then she walked into Adrian's office. He'd gotten back from Tokyo over the weekend and told him the same thing. "I'm staying," she said simply. Adrian smiled, genuine relief crossing his face. "I'm glad, but I want to make sure you're staying for the right reasons. Is this about loyalty or is this about what you actually want?" "It's about the work," Lily said. "I could make more money at Whitmore. I could have more prestige, more visibility, but I'd be maintaining someone else's vision instead of building my own, and I'm not ready to give that up yet." "Fair enough, but I don't want you to feel stuck here either, so let me propose something." Adrian pulled out a folder. "I've been working on this while I was traveling. A new structure for your division. More autonomy, bigger budget, and a seat at the executive table. You'd report directly to me, with full authority to influence company-wide decisions, not just contract review." Lily opened the folder and saw a formal proposal outlining an expansion of her role. Director of Strategic Risk and Integrity, with compensation that, while not quite matching Whitmore's offer, was substantially more than she currently made. "You were planning this whether I stayed or not," she said. "I was planning this because you've earned it. If you'd chosen to leave, I would have given this to whoever replaced you, but I'd much rather give it to you." Lily looked at the proposal, then at Adrian. "I don't need this to stay. I was staying anyway." "I know, but you deserve it regardless. Take the weekend to think about it. See if the structure makes sense for what you want to build. And Lily?" "Yes?" "Thank you for choosing us. Not just for the company's sake, but for mine. Working with you has reminded me why I started this in the first place. That matters more than any deal we could close." That evening, Lily gathered her team for an impromptu happy hour at a bar near the office. She told them about the Whitmore offer, about her decision to stay, about the new role Adrian had proposed. Sarah raised her glass. To Lily, who had the guts to say no to life-changing money because she cares more about meaningful work. "To Lily," the others echoed, clinking glasses. Kara leaned over. "Can I ask you something? Did you ever doubt your decision, even for a second?" "Every second until I made it," Lily admitted. "But doubt doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means you're taking the decision seriously. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose the path that feels right, even when you can't fully explain why." As they talked and laughed and celebrated, Lily felt something settle inside her. This was her tribe. These people who understood what it meant to speak uncomfortable truths, to prioritize integrity over politics, to build something that mattered. She'd found her place in the world, not by accident or by someone else's charity, but by choosing it deliberately, by knowing herself well enough to recognize what fulfilled her. And that knowledge, that certainty about who she was and what she wanted, was worth more than any salary package Marcus Whitmore could have offered. Later that week, Lily got an email from Taylor M., the junior accountant who had reached out after reading the article about her. "Ms. Harper, I wanted to update you. After I reported those expense irregularities, my company launched an investigation. It turned out to be a fraud scheme involving 3 senior executives. It's been a nightmare, honestly. I've been called to give testimony. I faced retaliation from people who were friends with the executives, and there have been days I regretted speaking up. But today, the DA's office told me that my testimony is going to be crucial in securing convictions that will prevent this from happening to other companies. And I realize that even though it's been hard, I do it again, because you showed me that doing the right thing matters more than being comfortable. Thank you for that. Taylor." Lily read the email 3 times, tears streaming down her face. This was why she'd stayed, not for the title or the salary or even the work itself, but for the ripple effect, for the way one person's courage could inspire another's, creating a chain reaction of truth-telling and integrity that spread far beyond anything she could directly control. She forwarded the email to Adrian with a simple note. "This is what it's all about." His response came within minutes. Exactly this. Never forget it. And Lily knew she wouldn't, because she finally understood that her voice didn't just matter in conference rooms and contract reviews. It mattered in the quiet moments when someone else was deciding whether to speak up or stay silent, in the choice between safety and integrity. in the decision to be seen rather than invisible. She'd spent so long believing she was too small to make a difference. Now she knew better, and that knowledge would shape everything she did from this moment forward. 1 year after Taylor's email, on a gray November afternoon that threatened rain, Lily stood in front of 200 people at the National Business Ethics Conference and felt her hands shake despite everything she'd learned about courage. The room was filled with executives, compliance officers, legal professionals, and academics, people who had spent their careers thinking about integrity in corporate contexts. And here she was, a woman who'd been a temp making $12 an hour just 2 years ago, about to give the keynote address. The moderator was finishing her introduction, and her work has fundamentally changed how we think about hierarchical barriers to ethical reporting. Please welcome Lily Harper, Director of Strategic Risk and Integrity at Sterling and Cole Industries. The applause felt surreal. Lily walked to the podium, adjusted the microphone, and looked out at all those faces turned toward her expectantly. She'd prepared remarks, 30 pages of carefully crafted talking points about risk assessment methodologies and organizational culture. But standing there, she realized that wasn't what these people needed to hear. 2 years ago, Lily began, setting aside her notes, I was invisible. Not metaphorically, literally invisible. I was the kind of employee people look through rather than at. The kind whose name nobody bothered to learn. I made copies, ordered lunches, and filed documents that I wasn't supposed to actually read. She saw people leaning forward, attention sharpening. Then one night, I read something I wasn't supposed to read. I saw a problem that could destroy the company I worked for, and I had a choice: stay invisible and safe, or speak up and risk everything. Lily's voice grew stronger. I chose to speak up, and it cost me my job. The room was absolutely silent now. But it also changed my life because one person, the CEO of that company, chose to listen, chose to verify rather than dismiss, chose to see value in a voice that came from the bottom of the hierarchy instead of the top. And that choice didn't just save a $400 million deal. It created a ripple effect that's still spreading. She spent the next 40 minutes telling her story with a rawness she'd never allowed herself before. The humiliation of being fired, the terror of Adrian showing up at her apartment, the imposter syndrome that still woke her up at 3 a.m. sometimes, the decision to turn down Marcus Whitmore's offer, the emails from people like Taylor who'd found their own courage through her example. Here's what I've learned, Lily said as she neared the end. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that something matters more than your fear. And the most powerful thing about speaking up isn't what it does for you. It's what it makes possible for everyone who comes after you. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. But what struck her most was the line of people waiting afterward to talk to her. One after another, they shared their own stories of being overlooked, dismissed, or punished for speaking uncomfortable truths. A man in his 50s with tears in his eyes told her, I've been a compliance officer for 23 years, and I've never once felt safe enough to halt a deal the executives wanted. Your talk made me realize I've been complicit in my own irrelevance. A young woman barely out of college said, I start my first corporate job next month, and I was planning to just keep my head down and survive. But you've shown me there's another way, that survival isn't the same as thriving. An older woman in an expensive suit gripped Lily's hand and said simply, Thank you for reminding me why I got into this work in the first place. I'd forgotten. By the time the last person left, Lily was emotionally exhausted, but also filled with something she couldn't quite name. Purpose, maybe. Or confirmation that the path she'd chosen mattered in ways she was still discovering. She was gathering her things when someone approached from behind. That was quite a speech. Lily turned to find a woman in her early 60s, elegant and composed, with intelligent eyes that reminded her of Adrian's. She extended her hand. Catherine Reynolds. I'm the Chief Ethics Officer at Meridian Global. I've been following your work since the Business Chronicle article. They shook hands, and Lily waited for the pitch. Another job offer, probably. Another attempt to recruit her away from Sterling and Cole. But Catherine surprised her. I'm not here to recruit you. I'm here to ask if you'd be willing to help me build something. A consortium of companies committed to creating real channels for ethical reporting. Not just compliance hotlines that go nowhere, but actual structural changes that protect and empower people who speak up. Why me? Because you've lived it. Because you understand both the fear and the necessity. Because your story resonates with people in a way that academic theories never will. Catherine pulled out a folder. We're calling it the Integrity Alliance. 10 companies to start, all committing to specific practices. Protected channels for reporting, mandatory leadership training on receiving difficult feedback, consequences for retaliation. Real change, not just lip service. Lily took the folder, scanning the names. Major corporations, all of them. This is ambitious. It's necessary, and it won't work without people like you, people who can speak to why this matters on a human level, not just a policy level. I'm not asking you to leave your job, just to lend your voice and your experience to helping us build this right. I'll need to talk to Adrian. I've already spoken with him. He's fully supportive. In fact, Sterling and Cole is one of our founding members. Of course, Adrian had already said yes. Lily smiled despite herself. Then I'm in. Tell me what you need. Over the next 6 months, Lily found herself pulled into a world she'd never imagined inhabiting. She consulted with Fortune 500 companies on their reporting structures. She trained senior executives on how to receive bad news without shooting the messenger. She helped draft policies that protected employees who raised concerns, regardless of their level or tenure. And through it all, she kept running her division at Sterling and Cole, kept mentoring her team, kept doing the work that had started everything. It was exhausting and exhilarating in equal measure. One afternoon in April, Lily was in a meeting with her team when her phone buzzed with a call from Adrian. She let it go to voicemail, but he called again immediately. That was unusual enough that she excused herself. Adrian, is everything okay? Can you come to my office? There's someone here who wants to meet you. 20 minutes later, Lily walked into Adrian's office to find him sitting with a girl who looked about 10 years old. She had dark curls and bright, curious eyes, and she was holding a stuffed elephant that had clearly seen better days. Lily, this is my daughter Emma, Adrian said, and there was something in his voice Lily had never heard before, pride mixed with vulnerability. Emma, this is Ms. Harper, the person I've told you about. Emma stood and extended her hand with grave politeness. It's nice to meet you. Dad says you're the bravest person he knows. Lily shook her hand, touched beyond words. I think he might be exaggerating. He doesn't exaggerate, Emma said seriously. He says you saved his company and taught him how to be a better father. That's a lot for one person. Lily looked at Adrian, who shrugged slightly, his eyes suspiciously bright. Dad and I are going camping this weekend, Emma continued. We're going to hike and make s'mores and look at stars. He takes me camping all the time now. We've gone 6 times this year. That sounds wonderful, Lily said softly. It is. And Dad says it's because you reminded him that people are more important than work. So thank you for that. After Emma left with Adrian's assistant to get a snack, Adrian and Lily sat in his office, the afternoon sun streaming through the windows. She's amazing, Lily said. She is, and I almost missed it. Adrian looked out at the city below. You know what she told me last week? She wants to be a lawyer when she grows up. Not because of the money or prestige, but because she wants to help people who don't have voices. I asked her where she got that idea, and she said, From you, Dad. You told me about Ms. Harper and how one person speaking up can change everything. Lily felt tears threatening. Adrian, I'm not telling you this to make you uncomfortable. I'm telling you because I want you to understand the full scope of what you did. You didn't just save a deal or build a division. You changed how I show up in the world, how I parent, how I lead. And that's changing how Emma sees the world too. That's a legacy that matters more than any contract ever could. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, 2 people whose lives had intersected at exactly the right time, in exactly the right way. I got an email from Patricia Hendricks yesterday, Lily said finally. Adrian raised his eyebrows. And? She's leaving Sterling and Cole, taking early retirement, but she wanted me to know that she's been volunteering with a nonprofit that helps women transition back into the workforce after incarceration, teaching them office skills, helping them understand their worth. She said working with me made her realize she'd spent her career protecting her own position instead of lifting other people up, and she wanted to spend whatever time she had left doing better. That's unexpected. I think people can change, Lily said, when they're given the space and the reason to. Patricia was protecting herself because she didn't feel secure. Once she realized that security built on other people's silence isn't real security, she could choose differently. Adrian nodded slowly. That's generous of you. It's honest. I'm not saying she was right to fire me, but I understand why she did it, and I'm glad she's found a way to use her experience to help people instead of hurt them. Another call came through on Adrian's desk phone, his assistant, reminding him of a meeting. As Lily stood to leave, Adrian stopped her. One more thing. The board approved a new initiative I've been working on. We're creating a company-wide mentorship program specifically for employees who are overlooked, assistants, temps, junior staff. People who have potential but no path forward. I want you to help design it. Of course. What made you think of it? You, obviously. But also Emma. She asked me the other day why some people get chances and others don't. Why some voices matter and others get ignored. I didn't have a good answer. So I'm trying to create a system where the answer is everyone gets a chance if they're willing to work for it. Lily thought about herself 2 years ago, invisible and afraid, believing she had nothing to offer. I'd be honored to help. The mentorship program launched 3 months later. The first cohort included 20 employees from across the company, administrative assistants, mailroom workers, junior analysts, people who'd been told implicitly or explicitly that they were invisible. Lily personally mentored 3 of them. One was a young man named David, who worked in facilities management but had a degree in environmental science. Another was a woman named Maria, who'd been an executive assistant for 5 years while teaching herself data analysis at night. The third was a quiet kid named Alex, who processed invoices in accounting but had ideas about efficiency improvements that could save the company millions. Watching them grow in confidence, seeing them start to believe in their own value, felt like watching herself 2 years ago, but with a safety net she'd never had. They could take risks knowing someone had their back. They could speak up knowing they'd be heard. That's what real change looked like, Lily realized. Not one dramatic moment, but 1,000 small shifts in how people were seen and valued. 6 months into the mentorship program, David presented an environmental sustainability initiative that got adopted company-wide. Maria moved into a data analyst role where her skills could be properly utilized, and Alex's efficiency improvements were implemented across 3 departments, saving Sterling and Cole an estimated $2 million annually. At the program's first graduation ceremony, Lily stood in front of the cohort and their families and felt her heart swell with something that went beyond pride. When I started at this company, she said, I was invisible. I spent 9 months believing that was all I deserved to be. But someone saw me anyway. Someone chose to listen when I spoke up, even though I was the least important person in the room. And that choice changed everything. She looked at the 20 faces in front of her, at their families beaming with pride, at Adrian sitting in the front row with Emma beside him. Now it's your turn to be that person for someone else, to listen when others would dismiss, to see potential where others see only position, to remember that every person in this company has value, regardless of their title or tenure. That's not just good ethics, it's good business. And it's how we build a world where no one has to be invisible just to survive. The applause was warm and genuine, but what mattered more were the conversations after. Parents thanking her for believing in their children, mentees sharing how the program had changed their trajectories, other employees asking how they could get involved in the next cohort. This was the ripple effect she'd never anticipated. One email, sent in fear 2 years ago, had grown into something that was changing lives across the entire company. That evening, Lily met Maya at their favorite Thai restaurant to celebrate. Over pad see ew and spring rolls, Maya raised her glass. To my best friend who went from invisible temp to keynote speaker to corporate change maker. I knew you were special, but damn, you really committed to proving it. Lily laughed. I just sent an email, Maya. Everything else just happened. No, everything else happened because you kept choosing courage over comfort over and over again. That's not luck. That's character. Maya's expression grew serious. Can I ask you something? Always. Are you happy? Like genuinely happy? Not successful or fulfilled or purposeful, but actually happy? Lily thought about it. 2 years ago, happiness had seemed like something other people got to experience. But now? Yeah, she said, surprised by how true it felt. I actually am. I wake up excited about my work. I have people I care about who care about me back. I'm making a difference in ways that matter, and I'm not hiding anymore. I'm just me, fully, visibly, unapologetically me. And that feels like the biggest victory of all. Good, Maya said firmly. You deserve it. You deserved it 2 years ago too, but I'm glad you finally know it yourself. 3 weeks later, on a crisp autumn morning that felt like a gift, Lily got a call from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Is this Lily Harper? A trembling voice, young and uncertain. Yes, this is she. My name is Sophie Martinez. I'm an assistant at Keller and Ross Consulting. I found something in a contract I was filing, something that doesn't look right, but I'm scared to say anything because I'm just a temp and I don't want to lose my job. Lily's heart clenched. She knew exactly what that fear felt like. Sophie, can I ask you something? Why did you call me? I read about you, the article, and I watched your speech from the ethics conference. You said courage is deciding something matters more than your fear. And I think this matters, but I'm so scared. Lily thought about herself 2 years ago, finger hovering over the send button, terrified of being seen. She thought about every person who'd reached out since then, looking for permission to use their own voice. Sophie, I can't tell you what to do. This is your choice, and it's a hard one. But I can tell you that being scared doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you recognize the stakes. And I can tell you that speaking up might cost you something in the short term, but staying silent will cost you something in the long term too. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm seeing a problem that isn't there? Then someone will check and confirm that everything's fine. But what if you're right? What if you're the only person who caught something that could hurt people? Can you live with staying silent if that's the case? Sophie was quiet for a long moment. No, I don't think I can. Then you have your answer. And Sophie, whatever happens, you're not alone. If you need someone to talk to, if you need advice on how to report this safely, call me back. I mean that, day or night. Thank you, Sophie whispered. Thank you for answering. Thank you for being brave first so people like me know it's possible. After they hung up, Lily sat in her office, watching the city move below her windows, and felt the full weight of what her choice had created. Sophie was out there right now, making the same impossible decision Lily had made 2 years ago. And somewhere else, someone who heard Sophie's story would make their own choice. And on, courage begetting courage, voices finding other voices, until the impossible became possible, became normal. That was the real power of speaking up. Not changing one company or saving one deal, but creating a permission structure for everyone who came after. Lily pulled out her phone and texted Adrian. Just got a call from someone making the same choice I made 2 years ago. She was terrified, but doing it anyway. His response came quickly. That's your legacy. Not the deals you saved, but the voices you inspired. Never forget that. She wouldn't. She couldn't. The following Saturday, Lily volunteered at Voice Forward's monthly gathering. The room was packed. The community had grown exponentially over the past year, fueled by word of mouth and people desperate for spaces where they could be honest about their struggles. During the open discussion, a man stood up. He was older, maybe 60, with the worn look of someone who'd spent a lifetime in corporate America. My name is Robert, he said, and I spent 35 years keeping my head down, agreeing with bosses who were wrong, staying quiet when I should have spoken up, protecting my paycheck and my pension at the expense of my integrity. I retired last month, and you know what I realized? I can't remember a single time in my career when I said something that mattered, when I stood for something, when I chose truth over safety. His voice cracked. I wasted 35 years being invisible, and I can't get them back. So I'm here to tell everyone in this room, don't be me. Don't wait until you retire to realize you never actually lived. Speak up, be seen, choose courage, because regret is so much heavier than fear. The room was silent. Then someone started clapping, and it spread until everyone was on their feet, applauding Robert's honesty and his warning. After the session, Robert approached Lily. I read about you, about what you did. And I kept thinking, if I'd met someone like you when I was young, maybe I would have made different choices. Maybe I would have been braver. You're being brave now, Lily said gently. Sharing your story, warning others, that matters. Maybe. But I wish I'd learned this lesson when I still had time to apply it. He gripped her hand. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep showing people there's another way. You're saving more than companies. You're saving souls. Lily carried those words with her as she left the community center. The evening was cool and clear, stars just beginning to emerge in the darkening sky. She walked instead of taking the bus, needing the movement, the time to think. She thought about Robert, about Patricia, about Sophie and Taylor, and all the others whose paths had intersected with hers. She thought about Adrian and Emma, about her team, about the mentorship program and the Integrity Alliance, and every ripple spreading outward from that one terrified email. She thought about the girl she'd been, invisible, afraid, believing she was too small to matter, and she thought about the woman she'd become, visible, imperfect, but unafraid to use her voice. The transformation hadn't been smooth or easy. There had been setbacks and doubts and moments when she'd questioned everything. But standing here now, walking through her city under an emerging canopy of stars, Lily knew with absolute certainty that she'd made the right choices. Not because they'd led to success, though they had. Not because they'd brought recognition, though they had. But because they'd led to her becoming fully, authentically herself. And that was worth more than any title or salary or accolade. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sophie. I did it. I reported the contract issue to my CEO. I'm terrified, but I did it. Thank you for giving me courage. Lily smiled through sudden tears and texted back. You gave yourself courage. I just reminded you it was there. Proud of you. Another text came through, this time from Adrian. Emma wants to know if you join us for dinner next Sunday. She has some questions about your job, and I think she's considering a career in ethics law. Fair warning, she'll ask you a million questions. Lily responded immediately. I'd be honored. Tell her to bring all the questions she wants. As she walked the final blocks to her apartment, a nice one now, in a safe neighborhood, with enough space that she'd bought actual furniture instead of living out of boxes, Lily felt something settle deep in her chest. Contentment, maybe. Or peace. Or simply the knowledge that she was exactly where she was supposed to be, doing exactly what she was meant to do. The lights in her building were warm and welcoming. Mrs. Chen from upstairs was in the lobby checking her mail, and she waved when she saw Lily. Working late again? Mrs. Chen asked. Actually, I was volunteering, helping people learn to speak up in their workplaces. That's wonderful. You know, my granddaughter just started her first job. She's so nervous about making mistakes, about speaking up when she has ideas. I'm going to tell her about you, show her that article. Maybe it'll help her be braver. I hope so, Lily said. Tell her she can call me if she ever needs someone to talk to. In her apartment, Lily made tea and curled up on her couch with the worn blanket that had been her mother's. She thought about her parents, about how proud they would have been to see her now. Not because of her title or success, but because she'd found a way to turn her pain into purpose, her fear into fuel for helping others. She pulled out her laptop and opened a document she'd been working on for months. A book about her experience, about speaking up in hierarchical systems, about finding your voice when the world wants you silent. She'd been resistant to writing it at first, uncomfortable with the idea of making her story the center of attention. But Catherine Reynolds had convinced her. It's not about making you famous, Catherine had said. It's about giving people a roadmap, a handbook for courage. You've lived this journey. Now help others navigate it. Lily read through what she'd written so far, then added a new section. The truth about courage is that it's not a one-time decision. It's a practice, a muscle you build through repeated use. Every time you speak up, it gets a little easier. Every time you choose visibility over safety, you learn something about your own strength. And eventually you realize that being seen, really, truly seen, is not the terrifying thing you thought it would be. It's liberating. It's empowering. It's the thing that makes everything else possible. She wrote until midnight, the words flowing easier than they ever had, because she was finally writing from a place of wholeness rather than woundedness. She was no longer the scared temp trying to justify her existence. She was simply someone who'd learned hard lessons and wanted to share them with others walking the same path. When she finally closed her laptop and got ready for bed, Lily caught her reflection in the bathroom mirror. She looked different than she had 2 years ago. More confident, yes. More polished. But more than that, she looked present, alive, like someone who inhabited her own life fully instead of hiding from it. You did it, she whispered to her reflection. You stopped being invisible. You found your voice. You mattered. And for the first time in her life, she believed it completely. The next morning was Sunday. Lily slept in, made pancakes, and spent the afternoon in a bookstore browsing sections she'd never had time for before. As she was leaving with a bag of novels, her phone rang. Sophie. Lily, I hope I'm not bothering you. Not at all. How are you doing? How did it go with the CEO? Sophie's voice was shaky but determined. He listened. He actually listened. He had the legal team review the contract, and I was right. There was a problem, a big one. They're renegotiating the terms now, and he told me I saved the company from a huge liability. Lily felt her eyes burn. Sophie, that's wonderful. But that's not why I'm calling. I'm calling because they fired me anyway. Lily's heart sank. What? My supervisor said I violated protocol by going directly to the CEO, that I should have gone through proper channels, so they terminated my temp contract. Sophie's voice cracked. I did the right thing, and I still lost my job, just like you did. Lily closed her eyes, remembering exactly how that felt. I'm so sorry, Sophie. But here's the thing, Sophie's voice strengthened. The CEO called me personally an hour ago. He said what my supervisor did was exactly the problem he's trying to fix in their company culture. And he offered me a full-time position in their compliance department, with benefits, with a real salary, with a boss who actually values people who speak up. Lily felt tears streaming down her face. Sophie, that's amazing. It's terrifying. I've never had a real job before, never had benefits or job security or any of this. But I'm going to take it, because you showed me it's possible. You showed me that speaking up might cost you something in the moment, but it can also open doors you never knew existed. I'm so proud of you, Lily said, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you. For everything. For answering when I called, for telling me I wasn't alone, for being brave first so I could be brave second. Sophie paused. I'm going to do what you do. I'm going to help the next person who's scared, and they'll help the person after that. And on and on. That's how we change things, right? That's exactly how we change things, Lily confirmed. After they hung up, Lily stood on the sidewalk outside the bookstore, people streaming past her, the city alive and moving around her. And she felt it again. That sense of purpose, of connection, of being part of something larger than herself. This was the legacy of that one terrified email. Not just the deals saved or the jobs created, but the permission granted, the courage shared, the voices amplified. One person speaking up, then another, until the impossible became inevitable. Lily walked home with her books and her full heart, thinking about next Sunday's dinner with Adrian and Emma, thinking about the mentorship program's next cohort, thinking about Sophie starting her new job and Robert warning others not to make his mistakes, thinking about all the invisible people finding their voices, one brave choice at a time. The world was changing, slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. And she'd helped start that change with nothing but honesty and a willingness to be seen. That night, before bed, Lily stood at her window looking out at the city lights, thinking about the journey that had brought her here. From invisible to visible, from silent to heard, from believing she was too small to matter to knowing her voice could change everything. She thought about emailing Vanessa Martinez with an update, maybe suggesting a follow-up article about Sophie and the others. But then she decided against it. This wasn't about her story anymore. It was about theirs. About every person who chose courage over comfort, truth over safety, voice over silence. Her phone lit up with one final text, this one from a number she didn't recognize. My name is James. I'm a junior accountant who just found some irregularities in my company's books. I'm scared to report them, but I read your article and I watched your speech and I just wanted you to know I'm going to do it anyway. Thank you for showing me it's possible. James. Lily smiled through tears and texted back. You've got this, and you're not alone. Call me if you need anything. Then she turned off her phone, wrapped herself in her mother's blanket, and let herself feel the full weight and wonder of what her choice had created. Because sometimes the quietest voices really do change everything. And sometimes one person choosing to be brave gives permission to thousands of others to do the same. Lily Harper had been invisible once, but not anymore. And because she'd chosen to be seen, countless others were finding the courage to step into their own light. That was the real magic of speaking up. Not what it did for you, but what it made possible for everyone who came after. One voice, then another, until silence was no longer the default, until truth-telling was the norm instead of the exception, until no one had to choose between their integrity and their livelihood. That was the world Lily was helping build, one brave conversation at a time. And as she drifted off to sleep that night, peaceful and purposeful, and finally, fully herself, she knew with absolute certainty that this was only the beginning. The ripples would keep spreading. The voices would keep rising. And the quiet revolution she'd started with one terrified email would continue long after her own story ended. Because that's what courage does. It multiplies. It inspires. It changes everything.